Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Twitter Spaces with me, Kalu Aja. We usually have a space every Saturday evening, 7 p.m. West African time, where we speak about the economy, personal finance, and of course, investing. We try to talk about your money and how you can take the news of the day and make your money or your budget go further. We have a series though that we're running. It's called The Economics of the Policy, right? We'll talk about policy and not essentially politics, right? And what we'll try to do is to x-ray the economic plans um, of the candidates that are running for the presidency of Nigeria. So in alphabetical order: Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, and of course Peter Obi. We've looked at all their comments and presentations that they make about the economy. We started off with the presentation that were made at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where we had Atiku and Peter Obi go there and do presentations. We covered that. We published the tweets, the podcast, and also on YouTube, which is available. If you go to the top of my profile, you can find it there and download and review. We've also had economic plans also published, which we've also reviewed and put it out there as well. We did the Bola Ahmed Tinubu presentation, I believe, was 2 weeks ago, and this week we want to continue by talking about the Peter Obi campaign. It's called their economic pact, right? Their pact with Nigeria. So I'm just going to just take the first maybe 10 minutes just to walk through what I did read. And then from there, we can open it up, and then you folks can just perhaps make your comments, and then we'll take it from there, right? So when I'll just have everyone else to speak or make a comment to then contribute. So it's called the Economic Pact. That's essentially how the Labour Party has identified their economic so we say plan. First of all, just a big disclaimer: there was news over the weekend where the Peter Obi campaign said that they have not officially released their economic plan and that they will do it later. We essentially have gotten the broad outlines of the plan. So, I mean, we're not going to, it's going to be the broad outlines are not going to change in whatever they eventually release. So, we can go ahead and essentially look at this together and then just see what they have. So, just put that disclaimer out there. Again, we don't speak for any campaign. We're just doing this to educate and learn amongst ourselves in Nigerians. So, I mean, the first thing I want to say is this: like just like the Bola Ahmed Tinubu plan and the Atiku plan, I really did not see a lot of drill down details, right? When you're running for politics or running for office, right, you want to see really how you are going to pay for the promises. You know, everyone makes promises. What we want to see really is to see how those promises will be for, right? That's the first thing I look out for. So if a government says, "Oh, I'm going to build this road, I'm going to build that road, I'm going to give ASU this or give ASU that," the question is, how are you going to pay for it, right? And that's essentially what is missing in all three campaigns, not just the Peter Obi or the Atiku or the Bola Ahmed Tinubu plan. All three of them don't really do this drill down where they talk about how they are going to pay for it. So that's just a comment right there on all those plans. But let's look at the big proposal in the Peter Obi plan. And it's essentially this idea of converting Nigeria from a monthly wage to an hourly wage. That's right there in one there is, I think I would say, the key plank of this economic plan, because when it affects the individual, and it's a huge change, right? A huge change. Let me try to explain it, right? When you say hourly work, we're not talking about taking your annual or your monthly salary and dividing by days and then say you're paid by the hour. That's not what we mean. Where you have economies that pay an hourly wage, what that does is introduce a concept, right, of part-time work as compared to Nigeria casualization. So if you go to the bank, most of those guys that do most of those jobs, you see tellers, note counters, security, most of them are already casual staff. And what that means is that they don't really get benefits. because you're not really a staff in quote unquote. You don't get benefits, right? You might contribute to the pension scheme, but you're not really a staff. Banks are better, they pay a lot, but most factories just employ people casually, let them go before the time that are supposed to be made full staff, and then just employ them back again when they need them. So they stop them from becoming real employees, more or less, so to say, right? And they then become staff. But with hourly wage, you then get a part-time work, which means if you're a Nigerian, first of all, you can price your job appropriately. You can work for one or two employers. You can work for just one employer on a part-time basis, say 20 hours a week, right? And you can then use that other time to go to school, or maybe you're a nursing mother, or maybe you just want to have time for yourself. So that changes the entire dynamics of work and how we define even employment and underemployment. Lots of Nigerians are employed in quote because really what's going on with them that they are underemployed. So you find a Nigerian, right, as an elevator operator. He's earning 25,000 naira a month. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, he is employed, but really is that really are we going to take that as an employment, right? Because that's not going to take you anywhere, right? So that really is the essence, that when you make it an hourly wage, what you're essentially saying is that, number one, all those casual on underemployed Nigerians then be employed on an hourly basis by their employer. That's number one. So you sweep for workforce. You now make a minimum wage law. Remember that this law is not, you have to pass this at the federal level, at the state level, because the federal government cannot compel states to pay. So the text of the plan is saying we are going to work with the states, right, to allow laws to be passed to move to an hourly wage. So you remove underemployment, you then also have Nigerians that are more flexible in their job. Hourly wage will then be set, not the monthly, but the hourly, right? So if you work on a Saturday, you get paid. If you work on a public holiday, you get paid. If you work after, say, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., also get paid. So the productivity of the worker goes up. The employer has to respect the time of the employee. So you get priced appropriately, right? So it's a way to increase, in quote, the take home pay of the worker without really, you know, it's a smart way to do it. It's also a smart way to bring the younger folks in Nigeria that are into the gig economy, the IT economy. So you have a guy that maybe has a certification on IT, right? And that's what he does. He can now work as a sole contractor, right, and deploy his time to two or three employers legally and get paid on the same, should we say, tax ID. So you get three or four employers paying him one tax ID. What that means for taxation is this: FIRS can then tax that individual on three streams of income. So in the current system, you only work for one employer, you only pay to that one employer. But now you work for three employers, you can use your time for two or three, and FIRS will then tax, or the state will then tax the payee on two or three income sources. So when the states see that one person that is really, really highly trained and has two or three employers means they can tax that same person two or three times, you can then see the benefits, right, of transiting to an hourly wage. Employers might say it's going to cost us more, but what it does for the employer, that introduces productivity. You just can't have guys there saying, okay, your job is to sweep the street or your job is to drive the elevator. You have to create jobs, proper job descriptions, because you want to get value for the hours that you are deploying those staff. I think this is big enough for us to just have initial comments from the folks out here that want to request. So let's talk about this hourly one first before we then perhaps go into the other part of the presentation. So I'm just going to add, I've got Prince. Hey, Prince, how are you doing? Please go ahead, sir. Prince, you've got the mic. You've got the floor. Please go ahead. Okay, Prince is muted. So let's go to the 316. 316, how are you doing, sir? Hope you can hear me. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. My concern about this, what you just explained, is how are they going to enforce it for private companies, hotels, different small scale business? Are they going to enforce it and make sure that this is going to happen? Or you pass the law and it becomes optional. You have the option to do monthly or hourly. I don't see how they're going to enforce it immediately. So that's my concern about it. But it's it's I think it's a way of increasing the value, the earning power of Nigerians. Makes because you cannot say okay, eventually the minimum wage will go up if it's converted to an hourly payment. But I don't see how they're going to enforce it. So I'm still listening. I want to hear people's ideas to see how they're going to enforce it to transcend all the companies, all private, both private and public sectors. That's my really concern I'm looking at.
I think that's a
Thanks.
great comment, and I think 316 that the implementation I think is the easiest part of the whole law because look at what I just said. If the states see the incentive, it's the exact same thing they're doing today. You have to pass a minimum wage. Right now, we have a minimum wage per monthly, right? So if you pass an hourly minimum wage and say okay, per hour is, let's just say, for example, 50 naira, it's the exact same thing. You wouldn't have a timesheet, and then you can come to work 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever it is, and that's how you get paid. You clock in, it's submitted, then you get paid. So your salary is based on the hour, not on the day or on the hour. Exact same thing. You have to then work on the hourly minimum wage. That's going to be a federal law. And for the federal government will say maybe all contractors that deal with the federal government would have to adopt the federal minimum wage. That would then mean that everyone that deals with the government has to adopt it. Some states would then have to say, well, if this is happening at the federal level, we could domesticate that law also in the states. Just like how you have in the United States, right? It's 7.25 per hour, but it's a federal law, right? Some states pay 15, some still pay 7.25, right? And that I think is going to be the way it's going to be. So I think the implementation is really the easy part of it. The harder part is explaining what it means to Nigerian workers that now you are being timed. You can't have someone coming on your hour to say, hey, make I just come check on you now. How are they for this office? That's going to go completely. Hey, Prince, you got the floor. Go ahead, sir. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you, Kalu. Thank you for having me, and good evening, everyone. And I'm happy to be on this space. My contribution is that I think it's a very, very brilliant idea. It's going to be revolutionary, and it's going to increase productivity. It's not just maybe increasing the minimum wage. It will also ensure that the employer of labor gets the actual work that he is paying for. Because when you see people being paid hourly, then there will be a greater deal of monitoring and assessing what the person is working for. Because you might even have two or three people coming in for the same section of work, depending on the specialization or what you want them to achieve. So I believe it's going to revolutionize a lot of things. There are benefits I believe we cannot even explain all about it, but I see it as being revolutionary. And like you rightly said, someone can afford to do two or three jobs. You can close maybe if you can begin your regular job at 8 o'clock and maybe close by 4 or 3 o'clock, and then have 2 or 3 hours, especially those who are in a specialized kind of work.
Mm,
So I believe yeah, and in fact, I can't wait. You understand, to see it being implemented, because it gives more quality value to, and puts a lot of sense into what it means to work. Because this monthly thing, we are always talking of one session doing this. I mean, when you put work into hour, you put a lot of meaning into the job that is being done. You
yeah,
understand? That's the way I see it.
yeah,
That's the way I see it. You understand? It puts a lot of content into what you are delivering as an employee.
I got
Yeah, so that is just the way I see it. I think I think I love it. It's going to revolutionize the industry, the labor industry in Nigeria, and I encourage it to be adopted.
it.
Thank you.
Gotcha. And again, just to make this other point again, is this look at the ASU strikes, right? If we
Yeah.
have an hourly
Yeah,
uh,
it's not difficult to know what they have done and what they did not do. You
yeah,
understand?
yeah, people, if we had the hourly structure, then you could have the university guy go to any number of schools he wants to do sabbatical or work. So if I work at University of Nigeria, I could go to 10 schools, doesn't matter. And then I get
Yes,
paid
absolutely.
hour in
Yeah,
those, right? So there's no more the IPPIS or UTAS does not track hourly wage when I go to, but it doesn't matter anymore. If you
yeah,
can have 24 hours, if you can work for 3 schools and those schools can mark your time card, if you're a lecturer, you go ahead. If you work for the Nigerian police force, you work for the federal government for police force and you get off work, you can go work as a bouncer in a nightclub. You get paid by that hour you've worked by the bouncer. So it's not just hourly wage, it's a change totally in how we view work and remuneration and compensation. Let me get White Lion in here. White Lion, go ahead, sir. You got the floor.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Your audio is very bad, White Lion. I'm so sorry. Your audio is very
Rates
bad.
won't work.
Let me get the muted. Muted, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Kalu, what's up, man?
I'm very well.
Yeah, great space, man. Actually stumbled on the post you made about it earlier. Well, the thing is, for this hourly rate, when I saw it the other day, I was at work with my friend. So when I actually saw the manifesto and one of the tweets, I think it was Labour Party that tweeted it or something. So yeah, I told my friend, "Yep, like this is the game changer." Actually, I'm not in Nigeria, right? So I'm abroad. I study here and I'm working here now, and that's the system here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, it's the hourly rates. Though the rates vary, it varies from place to place, right? When you go to like the capital city, it's higher there compared to the other parts of the regions of the country. So for me, I think it's a really welcome development if the Labour Party gets on board and they implement the policy. And like you said, it's really going to bring about productivity. Like how it works here. Like, okay, sometime like a couple months back, what's that? What's that? Okay, I was late for a couple of times and it really affected my pay, right? So I told my friend like, "Yo, bro, this is not gonna work. I just have to sit up." So what I do is I had to like set my alarm and not just set my alarm. I had to be really really cautious. Once the alarm goes off, once it goes off, I have to get up and drag my ass and get ready for work.
Because
So yeah,
exactly. So all the underemployment, the lack of just basic lack of productivity.
exactly, Carlo.
So
You're
you
really
go
really right.
for out, then you stroll back in
Mm,
song, you pump out
exactly,
your hair, you
exactly,
do hair.
exactly.
So that sort of goes with. But guys, let me also take this. Let me just read out. Should I say right? Let me read out the whole like what he listed out in the pack, so that way we can then go into other topics, right? So give me about a few minutes just to read this out for you. So again, number one, he said about the hourly wage we've talked about. He talked about production to consumption. This has been his main theme: production to consumption. The policy document talked a bit about it, but in my own view, it did not go deep enough. I understand what is being said, but a bystander that is not an economic guy, he can he really say he understands what it's meant by we want to go from production to consumption. I'm not sure the document really addressed that in depth. This is just my own view, guys. Then he talked about having a zero-based budget. Very, 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 very good, right? What a zero-based budget means is that when you start the new year, it's on a clean slate. You basically say, what do we want to do? What are our priorities? Then you then prioritize and you spend in those areas. It's harder to do a zero-based budget than when you are doing a budget that you are based on last. The government tried a zero-based budget in 2015 when they just came on board and they couldn't continue with the tempo. It needs a lot of numbers and dedication. They couldn't do it and they moved away from that. On funding infrastructure, I heard he said basically that we're going to not just do tax credits, because there's a lot of this new thing now in Nigeria is you give a tax credit and the private sector guy can essentially then build his build a road and get a tax credit. Peter B is saying we're going to go beyond that. We're going to have what's called blended finance, right? Not just tax, but philanthropy and community infrastructure bonds. I thought that was excellent. He's clearly targeting the diaspora. And what he's saying here is that the diaspora, say the town union or the local union that is based in Texas or Atlanta, it's able to invest in an infrastructure bond or a philanthropic infrastructure bond and build a road in that community. And that's going to be part of the legal framework, say in the Ministry of Finance or whatever, to attract those funds and have them go directly into projects. So it's not going to be remittances for welfare, but it's going to be remittances like an impact to develop the rural communities. This is essentially one part that Nigeria has not really grabbed the hold of, maximizing our advantage in the diaspora. We haven't really done it. And I think this transition from just the PPP to blended and adding philanthropy and community-based bonds is excellent. Good idea. I love it. On power sector, I mean, that was a quick win. They simply said, we're going to raise the 1 megawatt barrier. So essentially in Nigeria right now, you can generate and distribute power if it's below 1 megawatt, right? They said they're going to raise it up. That's a no-brainer to me. It's a very, very quick win, and I'm surprised no other party saw this. Simply raise it up to 5 megawatts. Means if I have an estate or I have a way to generate power, let's say I have a wind farm in Lekki, I can supply Lekki if it's more than 1 megawatt. Now, if it's more than 1 megawatt, I can attract investors. I can build a wave technology that generates power from the waves and supply Lekki. No one's going to come and invest in a 1 megawatt like from abroad. It's too risky, right? But 5 megawatts, that scale, that gives it more bankability. So great idea. And I think that's a low hanging fruit and they grabbed it. They then said on the public servants, no public servant is going to earn lower than, so let me say it again. No civil servant will earn lower than an elected official. I want to have this new thing called CREST, Common Regimented Emolument Structure Table. What it means is that if you are a career civil servant, your salary will not be less based on the same scale as a political employee. So if I come in with my advisor or my minister, the minister will not earn more than the DG or the career guys in a ministry. I think this basically helps morale. It helps the civil servant guys work and not basically say these guys are politicians. They are here to just basically cream off the top. So again, good idea. Let's get serious now with this, guys. I really love this idea of the digital economy, where he's talking about connecting all the schools, the universities, and all the states with fiber optics. Wow. If you connect states and universities with fiber optics, what you are saying is that pick Abia State. You've got tons of universities in Abia, tons in the east, tons in the middle belt. Look at Ekiti, University of Ado Ekiti. You connect University of Ado Ekiti to Ado Ekiti with fiber optics. That means a kid can stay in Ado Ekiti, connect to anywhere in the world with super fast internet, create his own SME right there in Ado Ekiti where costs are cheaper. He doesn't have to come to Lagos to live in. He can stay right there in Ado Ekiti. Name the university, create his own incubator right there, create jobs. It could be Nollywood, it could be servicing, it could be a call center. You could have guys in Ado Ekiti doing call center for Amazon or for Google in a very, very cheap city like Ado Ekiti. So game changer, you are bringing the youths in, you are giving them a pathway to wealth generation. This is the state saying, we're going to give you the infrastructure. You go out and make wealth. So wonderful idea. I like this. Let's get to the controversial one. He's saying we will prohibit public officials, including civil servants, from sending their children to foreign schools and hospitals whilst occupying public office. Guys, this is controversial. You can even say, do they have the legal powers to do this? But I completely agree with it 100%. I see no other policy that you can pass in Nigeria that can make schools and hospitals work than this policy. If I am a father and I work in ministry of whatever, and my child has to go to the school in Nigeria, God bless the minister that will steal money from that university. God bless him, because he will not survive a day of my wrath. the same thing. If you make accountable to the civil servants, you can't steal money. Where are you going to steal money to? When my wife is going to go to the hospital, they want to take that money and go abroad. It's not going to happen. So this is a way of making the watchers, making everybody a watcher of public funds. Listen, the hospital in Abuja, that national hospital in Abuja, it was built by the wife of Abacha. Why did she build it? She couldn't travel abroad. They couldn't go abroad. That was the first time Nigeria has ever been sanctioned. Ever. We couldn't travel abroad. So they built a world-class hospital. Name any hospital that has been built by since she built that one. Name anyone. Name anyone. I know Akwa Ibom built one, nice one. Very, very. I don't know how they're starting up. I know they built one. But go out, name one. Why did they build it? If they could fly abroad, would she have built it? And I mean, all props to her, she built it. But if they could fly abroad, would they have built it? Right now, people have a knee ache, they fly abroad. Look at ASU. Every public official that has a child today in school age has a child abroad. How can universities work if the guys that you give money to fix your universities all have children abroad? It's not going to work, guys. So let them school here. We'll worry about later. If you want to work for the federal government, you have to do NYSC. It's the exact same thing. So I'm going to die on this hill, guys. When you guys talk, I'll die on this hill. They're talking about education banks, right? To set up for student loans. I like it. I don't think we need a bank. What we need is a fund. So just have a fund. I don't know how it's going to be funded. You can do LNG, you can do taxes, but create a fund and then simply tell all Nigerian students you can get access to that fund if you have admission. I've written about endowment policies. I wrote about a fund like this. It's very easy. You start when a child is born. Simply say this: if your child is born and you register that child, the federal and the state government will donate 500,000 naira into an account. Call it the Education Savings Fund. When you are born, so the child is 1 month to 5 years, open the account, give it to a PFA. The PFA runs that account from when you are born till when you are 18. When you are 18, those funds would have grown because you haven't withdrawn it. That could form the basis of funding this education bank. So I think we can do work there, but I like the idea that we can then create students' loan. What student loan mean, guys, is this: every university knows that you can pay. So because I know you can pay, I can go and build a university because I'm sure that you can pay. Once I'm sure of my market, I'm 90% of the problem. That's how we have to think. The federal government should not fund education. The federal government should fund tuition. Big difference. So I like that again. Let me see. I think that's really it's some things that I just saw that I think were highlights. So let's go back to the guys that want to speak. Kevin, you've got the floor, sir. How are you? Kevin, please unmute, sir.
Good evening, Kalu. Hi.
How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm very well, thanks. Good. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'm fine.
Oh, sorry about
Good
that.
evening to everyone. Thank you. Thank you. So I earlier this week I went through the document and I'm a bit concerned, which is the concern I've shared a number of times, is on the budget, the finances of the country, because it's very good to make promises, but you need to fund the promises. Anybody can make promises. The question is, how do you fund? For those of us who might not be aware of what the current very grim reality is, let me just paint a brief picture. So right now, today, the Nigerian government spends 119 kobo for every 100 kobo of revenue generated on debt services. Last year, the government spent more money on under recovery, that's PMS subsidy, than got from NNPC as oil receipts. Okay, so the reality of the situation today, and if you look at the FX issue, apart from the hole we dug ourselves into further by announcing this Naira design that made a lot of people fly into the US dollar and caused a panic. If you look at the FX situation, you realize that there are four major ways through which Nigeria gets FX. One is FDIs, two are NXP proceeds, which was the reason why CBN came out with the ROT 200 program. It was a failure, and the reason why it was a failure is because the gap between the official markets and the parallel markets are too wide. So, for example, them saying they are going to pay you 65 naira for every dollar for repatriating your dollars back to Nigeria when they can get 400 naira for every dollar doesn't make any economic sense. No company is going to be, in the name of patriotism, lose out on 335 naira of differential because you're patriotic to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Then there is diaspora remittances, yeah, which is the reason why I continue to say that it's important for the Nigerian diaspora to have the right to vote. If they are bringing money to Nigeria, they should be given the right to vote through absentee balloting system.
Agreed.
Okay? And then the final one is oil receipts. And oil receipts, the problem is lack of sincerity. That's all I can say about the situation with the level of production output we have today. Output we have today. Okay, the terminals, the 33 export terminals Nigeria has, they are still using dipstick, and the reason why Nigerian NNPC is intentionally using dipstick is because they know that if they steal crude oil, yeah, nobody can trace it. If you have a metering technology, you'll be able to trace.
Say it so I understand what you're saying. We're not measuring the amount of crude oil we export. We're just putting a stick into the well and saying it's 10 meters. There's no digital measure. Say it so people can understand exactly what you're saying.
Exactly. There's no digital measure for you to track the amount of oil that comes in and the amount of oil that goes out. So what happened is that, and this is the reason why, when I was writing, I was part of 30-man team that wrote the document, the ProShare document on the anatomy of crude oil theft. Anyone who can get it, they can get it. I discovered that the oil theft in Nigeria is so sophisticated and organized that the militants in the creeks don't have that level of intellectual capacity to do it. When you talk about hot and cold pressure technology for stealing crude oil, you tap into high pressure pipes and depressurize the pipe, divert it. You need the connivance of the people in the control tower of these companies to be able to go, because as we speak, the oil companies, NNPC, they have control rooms where they track all the tapping points. So how can you tell me that people are stealing more than 1 million barrels of crude oil a day and you don't know that these are the tapping points? Okay. So
let's take it home so I can get others in here, right?
Yes, in taking it home, and this is the reason why I say that, look, a manifesto is good, but you need another 500 to 600 pages of policy documents that gives the how. I am concerned about revenue, yeah, because as we speak today, the government does not have revenue, and this is the reason why Moody's has come out to downgrade Nigeria. You can imagine that they convert trillion naira of money MFLA printed out of thin air and gave to the federal government. In fact, in the month of September, MFLA still advanced the federal government 749 billion naira in the month of September, in contravention of Section 38 of the CBN Act. In fact, that money that you advanced in September is even more than the statutory limit set for the CBN Act that the CBN can give the federal government. Converting it to 40-year government bond means that the ratings companies will downgrade you, because the agencies will downgrade you, because any hole, that large hole in the balance sheet of the central bank, poses a systemic risk to the Nigerian economy. And you can see that with downgrading banks, it has also led to the downgrade of 30 companies. Dangote, IHS Towers, and Seplat was just downgraded like 3 days ago. I expect that because of this currency crisis we have today, where pounds has crossed 1,000, dollars is touching, is hovering around 900 naira. Moody's and Fitch are still going to come out before Christmas and downgrade Nigeria's foreign currency usual rating from B3 to CAA1, which carries very substantial risk. So in closing, I'll just say that I am very concerned about revenues, and it doesn't look good at all. So I want, it's more like a question for debate and discussion, like flesh, on how we can tackle these issues based on existential realities. Thank you.
I think, Kevin, that's a good point. And again, like I said at the very, very top, I've looked at all three, not just their policy documents, but even their comments when they went to the LCCI. they do not give drill down details. You want to tell me how you're going to fund it, because I can then calculate if it's going to be by taxes or by remittances or by FDIs. We need to know, even if it's not the numbers, but we need to know how we are going to fund this. How will Peter Obi fund the fiber optics? How will Bola Ahmed Tinubu fund the employment of 50 million youths to build infrastructure? How will Atiku Abubakar fund his plan to make gas the sole source of power in Nigeria? We need to get details, and like I said, we don't have those details. Kelly, you've got the floor. Let's hear you talk, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carlo. I think, Kelvin, you spoke quite brilliantly. But you see, one thing we need to do also is to match the personality of the person who is speaking with the letters. So the spirit of the individual must dovetail with the letters. Most of these plans P2B is speaking to. Some of the things I noted here is spirit of industry, and above all, also you see how he went out to the diaspora to reach out. He has spoken comprehensively about the power of the diaspora, and how the diaspora can not just be brand ambassadors but help to actually help the economy. The truth of the matter is this: regardless of whoever comes into power next year, if we don't tackle security, we're going to have a problem. Next year, whoever takes the saddle has a lot of work to do, a lot of work, not just from a unity standpoint, but from an economic perspective. Most of what he has put in this policy document are very fantastic. On the revenue side, I think they're estimating like 2.23 for tax or something, like what Carlo mentioned earlier about how the hourly workers can help to increase taxation, multiple taxations, and boost tax. You cannot have increased taxation from a revenue side or even FDI if we don't handle the security issue. And I think that would be the most key thing for whoever comes in to generate more revenues. But why do I personally believe that he is the better candidate is because we've seen him go to diaspora, talk to people, try to build that trust and loyalty, speaking to them about the same vision, trying to cut people in London and Germany and all these other areas. Because if we have an increased FDI, some of these things can be done. But above all, I think security is the key thing. Once we get security right, then we'll start having a boost in some of the other things, especially creating small SMEs, issues that have to do with power. Of course, like Kevin mentioned, the Moody's ratings last week, is not good for those 10 banks that have been downgraded. It's not good, and I believe that this will see more color on November 15 when they have the presidential debate. Most of these people who are running for election, the problem is they just speak from the policy. You don't see the spirit. You don't see an understanding of who is how they are going to do it. The how is not there, because if you notice, for example, Vice President Atiku, former Vice President Atiku, and Tinubu has not had a single media interview. So I'm not here talking politics, but the truth is, if you can't be asked questions and you cannot crystallize your ideas and answer these questions directly from those who are interviewing them, it's going to be very hard to build trust that they know what they're going to do. To Buhari, Buhari avoided a lot of camera interview during his process. So I believe his all these things that you've mentioned here today, even the prohibition of the public officials in education, should actually go beyond education. It should also go to medical tourism. We need to build our institutions, our health institutions. There's no reason why a sitting president will have to travel to London for checkup like Buhari has done. There's no reason why. In 8 years, we don't have a hospital. In 23 years of democracy, we don't have a hospital where a president can go to. It marks of failure. It's marks of failure. If we continue like this, if you have to send your kids, or if you're a minister, or if you're a serving governor or official, you have to attend the hospitals in Nigeria. It's as simple as that.
I agree with you, Kevin Kelly. And let me just paint the picture for folks that are listening. Let's connect the dots, right? There are two things that the president in 2023 will do, and the economy will improve. Right now, you see dollar approaching 1,000. It's crazy. You see inflation at 22%. It's crazy. So what should you do as a president in 2023? It's just two things. Number one, you fix insecurity. Why? Because of course it's insecurity, but most importantly, it's tied to food. Nigeria's food is grown in the middle belt and the north, the tubers, the cereals, middle belt, the north, even the meats. If you fix insecurity, you are able to drop the price of food. Food is 67% of the Nigerians' average budget. So 6-7. So if you drop the price of food, you drop the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, i.e. inflation. So if food prices drops because there's more supply, then inflation drops. If inflation drops, you then see a general downtrend in cost, which means everybody then gets a pay rise. That's number one thing you have to do. Number two thing is that you have to have trust. When you have a new president, investors abroad are going to watch and say, can we trust this person? If we can, they will inflow remittances. Right now, Nigeria is getting about 25 billion from remittances. If we have a president that we can trust, that can easily double to 50 billion a month. And that 50 billion can come in the next 3 months. There's already 20 billion in Nigeria sitting in dorm accounts. You can get an extra 30 billion in 3 months from the diaspora, from the $100 here, $200 here. That can still flow into the economy. With 50 billion, there's no way the dollar will not fall from the 900 or 800 it is today to nearly 4 or 300. It has nothing to do with the policy that will even be passed. It's just the perception. I've said this before, just the perception of who the president is. When the new PM took over in the UK, what happened to the bond market? The UK pound improved, the UK bonds went up in price. When Buhari won in 2015, what happened to the market? The market went up because people perceived that Buhari was going to be anti-corruption, was going to fight Boko Haram, was going to do all this. He failed. So in 2019, when he won the next re-election, the market went down. So the markets are looking for, number one, safety. If you can stop the insecurity, food prices fall, that falls inflation. Number two, trust. If you have a trustworthy president in 2023, dollars would inflow, the exchange rate will crash. Those are what you need to do. Let's have panel. Panel, I've got you here. Oh, cool. Columbia third. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Kalu. I won't take much of our time, but I think what we are talking about from the whole manifesto, for me, one of the things I've noticed about most of our politicians is they make it very voluminous. We talked about the hourly wages, which I feel is not possible, but it's a very welcoming one. I don't know if I have much time to explain why. Let's say presently our minimum wage, which is at 30,000 minimum wage. If you check very well, if they have to go for 25, let's use that for an example. You have 1,200 for a day, if we say 25 days. So what I'm trying to say is just like what the previous speaker before Kelly spoke, the problem of indebtedness, inflation, and how to get revenue needs to be tackled before coming to the hourly wage. Then when we come to the point of which I'm very interested in, production to consumption. I'm very interested in that because I feel Nigerians are yet, or Nigerian as a whole, is yet to understand what technology is. We always believe technology has to do with totally sciences. But I feel, for example, there are a lot of little things we are commonizing which can help Nigeria and boost Nigeria. One is our language. Language, English is okay. English is an official language. It's respectable. But whether we like it or not, broken is one of the most communicated language in Nigeria. And I feel Nigeria should start looking into it because the countries and the media houses are already having special channels and places for it. And what it will do for us, it will give us direct communication to our presidents and our officials. Most of the people we have today don't really understand some basic things. And it's hard time we start having a language technology so that our people will understand it. And also it might create employment from translating. The next one we should also look in that will help us so much is the clothing industry. Now, it is only in Nigeria you see people schools and private sectors, especially forcing individuals to wear suits, tie, and shirts to work. And this is material out easily. And these materials, the fabrics, and most of them are imported. So if we have policies that is against such and allow people to use the locally made clothes, it will warn them out and it will give our designers and our local fabrics places to come up and grow. Another part is in developing an economy, whether we like it or not, transportation cannot be left out and electricity. Now, the transport sector in Nigeria is quite bad. When I mean it's bad, our governments are concerned about building roads, and now moving goods through roads are quite more expensive than moving goods through railway. Now, if we can have a good railway system connecting Nigerian interstates and both the federals and within states, I feel that will boost agriculture very well because most of the agro products, it's not that they are not available, they end up being rotten or given to animals because the cost of bringing this product out of the rural area to the urban area or to the factories is quite expensive. And farmers at the same time don't get a return for it. It is the middleman who enjoy them. I'll give an example when it comes.
Can you hear me? Pana, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Right, I wanted just to wind up. What I'm trying to say is this, yeah, just to explain. I think all your points are wonderful, and I think you stated them clearly. Just to make the point again about the hourly wage. Your hourly, if you
Okay, I
earn,
should.
no, let me
Okay.
just make this point again. If you earn
Okay, I'm listening, sir.
if you make 100,000 naira today, right? Hourly wage does not mean you're going to take that 100,000 and divide. That's not the target. It's not to divide your monthly by 365. No, the idea is to make your work based on the hour. So hours worked to this employer. That's what they are targeting. So that way, if you are
Yes.
an employer, you can work for two or three employers, or you could work on a part-time basis, or you could then and more revenues, more tax revenues on that work. Right now, if I have, say, coding skills, right, and I work for a bank, that's it. I can't work for one bank and work for the other bank. The laws don't allow that. But if there was an hourly wage structure, that's just the way to say it. There would be an encompassing legislation that would then say, I work per hour for this bank, maybe 8 to 5. I work for hour to this bank, maybe 9 to whatever 10. That's two streams of
Yes,
income
sir.
on one scale on one tax ID. One tax ID,
Yes.
then get those advantages as separate from what we're having. Does that make a bit more sense?
Yes, it does. Coming from the point of view of underemployment presently. What I'm trying to say is if, for example, it's a very good one, what you've said, but what I was trying to make you or my own point is this already most people in Nigeria, apart from people working in NMC, PC, PPC, they are already the majority of Nigerian workers are already underpaid. And most of our employers use this as an advantage. That's why you see that they treat workers how they like. And if you can't get that, if you can't work to their own terms, you get sacked or you leave. What I'm saying is, if we go on hourly wage, for example, how are they going to pay? But if we have this wipe out, the hope for hourly wage will come and it will come well.
The same thing. It's the
Sir?
same thing. What if I said I was paying you per annum and I paid you per month? It's the exact same thing. The numbers don't change. What changes is how you relate to that remuneration. That's what's changing.
Okay.
Not go up or down in quotes, like all things being equal. But the idea is that you are giving your time to this employer and your time to that employer. If you are at home right now and you work for, say, X bank, you can't go work for Y bank legally if you're at home because you
Yes,
are
sir.
employed to
Yes, sir.
Y employer. But with an hourly wage structure, you can work and Y employer because it's only paying you for that time. You own 24 hours. You allocate that time to whoever employer you'd want. That's the whole idea. Not really that you are dividing to get the time. You get the point. The revenues would increase. When
Yes,
they
sir.
say that the revenues go up because it's one tax ID, two revenue streams. They would like it too. Let me get an economist here. Let me get his name right here. This is True Econ Brew. Yeah.
No,
Pardon, I got
okay.
let's get us in here. True Econ Brew.
Can I just give you a quick
Go ahead, sir. You've got the floor. True Econ Brew. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, okay. Good evening.
Good
Good
evening, sir.
afternoon. Good morning. Depends on where you are.
Yeah, hi.
So I would like to preface my remarks by saying I am an OB supporter, even though I I intend to hold my nose and vote OB because I'm not really optimistic about anything he has said. Let me just say first of all that I will vote Obi. I will support him. So I need to get that out of the way so that people don't attack me that I'm a Baptist or I'm articulated or anything of the sort. I just feel that has to be said. So that being said, I've already sort of implied that there are flaws with the manifesto that he has put out, the plan he has put out. But I'm going to focus on this issue of the hourly payment. I did not really get the merits for the hourly payment until actually listening to this space. Then I started to see after listening to what Carl had to say, I I started to accept. Okay, this is actually good. I believe that it is positive. However, however, here's my contention. So one of the speakers, I can't remember who, maybe the second or the third person to speak, spoke about how it will be rolled out and making it mandatory for federal and states. Um, what I have a problem with. Um, I believe one thing that is that we tend to look at the effect of a policy rather than looking at what, how do I put this? We don't look at what is not seen. We only look at the effects of the policy. So let me give a practical example. If we're subsidizing the oil sector, for instance, let's assume we didn't have subsidies and we were about to start subsidizing. So all we would see is cheaper petroleum products for all Nigerians, right? That is what we would see. However, what is not is the wahala that we are all facing as Nigerians now due to the fuel subsidy that many of us are crying for them to remove. So, in the same way, I feel this issue of the hourly wages, even though it is a beautiful thing, I really think someone said something, I believe it was you, Carl, or the second person who spoke, who made mention of the fact that it will increase productivity. And I was like, that's true. Okay, yeah, it was you, Carl. People would not waste their time, as the Igbo say, doing umpankata, at work. People will be on Twitter on their phone at work because they will be paid based on how many hours they put in. And of course, the employer is going to have a way to measure productivity. However, what is not seen is how this might affect so only the producer. Sorry, only the employee. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. This policy tends to favor only the employee and not the employer. I don't think we have considered how this will affect employers.
Could I jump in?
Perhaps.
I could hop in real quick for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Look
please.
this way, right? Let's say I own a shop and I sell my goods.
Yeah.
I own a shop in Alhafia. People come to Alhafia every Christmas, so I get a lot of demand in Christmas. Under the new system, under this current system, I have to employ a sales girl and pay her every month. Sells nothing.
Sorry, could you go back? Could you 5 seconds? I didn't hear you for a couple
If
seconds there.
I have a store and I get
Uh-huh.
demand in that store January in the December month, say October, November, December, I have to hire a sales. I have to pay her every month, even if she makes no sales. With per hour wage, I could hire 2 sales girls for this month exactly. Pay them per hour for just October, November, December, and then they leave. For me as an employer, I can plan my wage. I can increase my staffing according to demand. So I can employ you per the hour and I let you go at the end of the hour. I don't have that. I don't carry that fixed cost of an employer. So it works for both ways. Also in America, you see them during summer, they hire summer. You go everywhere in America, you see summer hire, summer hire. Then they also reduce. During agriculture, they are hiring agricultural workers. People actually flying, the Mexicans come in for per hour work on the field and they go back. So it's both ways. It's not just to take the monthly job and divide it. It's a new way of relationship between the employer and the employee.
Is there a possibility? Does any possibility exist at all that there is perhaps some employer who will not be able to pay hourly wages? I can't think of any, but hypothetically, is it possible that there will be some employer that might make his, should I say, his income at the end of the month? Is there?
The law says that first of all, that the policy I read said that they're going to criminalize non-payment of hourly work. So the law is saying that they're going to introduce, will say, if you don't pay, it's a criminal offense, number one. And number two, it's easier to get paid by the hour. Like in Nigeria, labor is so cheap. So we take it for nothing. People just call some guys, go and cut that forest, and they give them 100 naira. Oh, go and do this. Just get out workers in Nigeria. Labor is so cheap in Nigeria that sometimes it's abused. You see people who go pack carpenters, they go and do day laborer work, and then they give them 100 naira and gala and lacasera. That's their salary. It will no longer now, because now there's going to be a minimum wage that you have to pay the person. So invariably, it's a salary increase. So both the wage earner and the wage payer understand the idea of productivity. No one was going to sit down and talk on his phone doing his work because you are paid by the hour. So let me get other guys in here. If you don't, let me get. Let's get.
I'll jump in later. Fine, I'll jump in later. Thank you.
I got Stella's Beauty Place. I'm not sure who is the boss. I got Stella's Beauty Place. Go ahead. Stella's Beauty Place. You've got the floor. You want to go for it? Okay, let's get Tunde A. Tunde, how are you doing, sir? Please go ahead. Tunde, you've got the floor. Yeah.
Thank you, Kalu, very much for this platform. I want to appreciate you also for, I really not read most of these manifestos, but I think whichever party, we should look at having a development plan. I think the challenge for Nigeria is short-sighted, 5 years. People will exist in this space until this world comes to an end. So we should be long-term in nature. I think the challenge is we are short terms. That's one. Two, we should create, like in US, in UK, should have an independent office of government where every policy of government will be thoroughly analyzed and facts and figures provided. As many people have said, it's cheap to say, I will do this. How would you do it? What is the implication of what you have done? Every policy has its pros and cons. Every policy has its good, its bad, its ugly. No system is perfect. I think the challenge is we need to sit down, criticize. And as some people have rightly said, every presidential candidate in Nigeria, whoever he or she is, should face the population, should face experts. People should critique. We should go from this, yes, he's my man, whatever what we say, he's my man, he's from my place. Whatever anybody does as the president of Nigeria, we should all realize we would all be affected. Whatever tribalism, we are all affected. So we should own the process. No president should come in 2023 with a bow and go. Oh, we know you know. Even if we know you, we want to criticize what you have said. What if this one happens? We all learned what happened in the UK. The man came with a budget, no analysis, nothing. And that was why it was swept away. And that was why even they said, no, we are going to still postpone because it should be thoroughly in-depth. So I think that's one. Two, we need a National Assembly that will give oversight. Proper. Look at what the Senate does in the US. They scrutinize. They scrutinize. It will go back, even if you are in the majority. This is our party, is our people. Whatever the president says is right. We should know it is what the people of Nigeria say is right. It's what we collectively say that is right. That should be taken as right, good, and for us as a nation. And in final analysis, I think as a nation, we should also, our president, whoever comes in, should look into the issue of our federal structure. The challenge is there is no power at the center. And most of the states just look up to the center for everything. Everything. And so the center, the states which should be the engine room of development in this country are left to do little or nothing. Most states are just there to collect allocation and pay workers. There is no development. Development is more than paying staff salary. Development is when the average man on the road can aspire to become great, irrespective of where he's from, his religion, his gender, whatever. So please let's ensure whichever party this we are supporting, the program of your president, let us a panel of opponents. Let them criticize it. Let us see how he's going to defend it. Not I will select who I want to go and meet. You can't select who you want to speak to.
Yeah,
You are going to be the president of Nigeria.
I get the point, and
You are going to be the leader of this country.
yeah,
So thank you
Tunde,
very much. I yield.
yeah, good point. Again, I just want to emphasize something today. I said, it's very important that you ask questions. That's why I'm doing this stuff. It's very important that we ask questions. Let's ask questions. Don't this whole tribal religious thing is so sickening. We're a very, very sophisticated people when it comes to other things apart from politics. We like good things. We like good music. We want to build nice homes. But once it comes to politics, we go back to this nonsense religion and tribe. I don't get the thing with Nigerians. But let's see. Ike, you've got the floor. Go ahead, sir. Ike, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Okay. Ike. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to be quick fast. I think there are three things that impress me: the hourly rate, the wages between the politicians and the civil servant, and I think the tech idea. So, in terms of the pay in comparison to the politician, I'm a civil servant, so this is quite important for me to say. Where I work, I earn 4 times more than our chief minister. So our chief minister is like our prime minister here in Jersey. So I earn 4 times more than the chief minister. And I'm just in a management role. I'm not an executive role. So I'm just one step below an executive role. So I'm a top management role, but I'm not an executive. So that gives you an idea of how other systems operate. So what this means is that I left EY to go work for the government. In Nigeria, I can't leave KPMG to go work for any government. When I was in Nigeria, I was a senior, and officially, I was any more than Buhari. So you make sense of that. If you are in KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, you're in bank, why would you want to leave those kind of job to go do a civil service job? I mean, the only civil service job you consider doing is probably NMPC or something that close, but I don't think so. In terms of attracting best talent, that policy is spot on. Because what it means is that because the politicians know they are earning, they have to review the pay. They have to review how much lecturers are being paid so that they don't get paid peanuts, So they have to review the pay and they have to pay. That also move in line with hourly pay because our labor in Nigeria is so cheap. It's really criminal and it affects the artisan the most. I mean, when I moved to Jersey, I have to think twice before cutting my hair. In Nigeria, I cut my hair every week, every time. When I have to, I think, are you sure you really want to be cutting your hair every week? Because you'll be paying £20, £25. And it's not as if those guys are charging us those much, but they have to earn a living. So just because I'm a barber or I'm a shoemaker or I shoe polish or whatever I do, I should earn a living. A living that is, that is decent. I should make a decent life out of it. It doesn't matter what it is I do. And I think at that point, I hit my mind. For all those that are against the hourly rate, please just go back and think twice about it. And whatever reason that you're saying you will not work in Nigeria, Nigeria is not a vacuum.
Ike, I can hear your kids behind you, right?
Yeah, it's getting annoyed.
Yeah, say hi to them for me and all that. Yeah, take good care. I've got Abdulrahman Mohammed. Is that Abdulrahman? You got the floor, sir. Abdulrahman. Going once, going twice. Let's get Mr. I don't know if let me get the name correct. You guys have to have nicer Twitter names. I've got Colery Consult. Kohler Consult. Dabire.
You meant to say that
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, what I have to say, upon the hourly rate, proposed by Peter Obi. When we come to look at these things, if you look at that, you also look at there's something else he proposed, the crest.
Yeah.
It means he's trying to put it at like in Canada they call it income level, NOC.
Could I have you speak up a bit, sir, if you don't mind?
They call it NOC. So a kind of every level of job is graded, on certain scales, certain qualifications. You don't really have to go to university to make the topmost. Everything like the crest that Peter proposed. And when it comes to hourly rate, it's something that drives productivity. Productivity in the sense that when we say hourly rate, then you put it, okay, let's say Nigeria might say 150, 200 per hour. 200 per hour. Then that guy on the street that is doing shoe mechanic knows that, okay, for me to survive and live comfortably in Nigeria, my shoemaking must be making me $200 per hour.
Mm.
Then by so doing, that guy is going to earn a living, because for you that wants to shine your shoe, he will price you in a way that he will be able to make $200 per hour. Everybody knows this is the rate. But at a monthly rate, everybody is just living. You don't need, people work 24 hours and they get paid what
Yeah.
they should be earning in 1 week.
Yeah.
But the company plans better. Okay, since we can't afford 20 workers, we can afford 10, and we can keep them for 8 hours. And when we keep them for 8 hours, we make them do more. And when they stay for 8 hours, we supervise them and make sure they're doing actually the job. Civil servants don't show up whenever they want. Call their friends to sign them in. Call their friends to sign. I know. Then in school, in secondary school, teacher will be at home and call a fellow teacher to sign them in. Nobody really cares. But by hourly rate, if you are not in by 8 o'clock, you've lost 30 minutes, you've lost 1 hour. Do you want to lose that? No. It drives also punctuality. Look at our system. It's almost like we have African time. Because no hourly rate, because people are not earning by the hour. You show up anytime, you make excuses. No, when you are paid by the hour, you don't show up anytime. You have to actually show up on time. As a civil servant, you have to actually do the work. Your supervisor has to actually account for the hours you do, so the supervisors are on you. The company has to actually account, whether you are productive. So they're actually on you. They care about what you do to make sure that productivity is driven. So,
Sure.
I'm all for the hourly rate introduction in Nigeria. It will go a lot of way to drive, the small and medium. Like, let's say you're opening up
Very well.
a
Maybe
call
let's
center.
take it home.
Pardon?
Let's take it home if you don't mind. Let's take it home. Yeah.
Yeah, let's say in Nigeria, say you want open call center. You want open like a shop, you sell phone or anything. You don't come and you keep sales guests 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Sales guests go there, like for place like Lagos, she go there road, 2 hours, 3 hours. When the same sales guests say, that same hourly range, that same minimum wage where she go earn, across the road and do 5 hours, come back, take a stroll and do another 3 hours somewhere else, engage in something productive for herself, and make more. So I'm all for that hourly rate. It will do a lot. It will do a lot in our system, and it will drive lots of productivity. It will drive planning. It will
All
drive,
right.
most
All right.
importantly, punctuality in our society. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the comment and how you broke it down in broken. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's get Ken Uti here. Ken, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Kalu, for this brilliant session. Just to explore this space. When I saw the notification for this space yesterday, I was wondering exactly what we'll be talking about, because the document is not final yet. I deliberately decided not to look at it because it's not the final version. But I really get your approach towards the space. You are looking at the summary, which you don't expect to change, and fair enough. That is brilliant. I mean, everyone has said pretty much what I would like to say, most especially Kelvin, the way he made his own submission. But really, what I would what really worries me, because during the pandemic, I mean, the figures in our debt servicing and all that compared to revenue is unbelievable. And what really worries me is how we are going to generate revenue. Whoever is going to come in will have a tall order. I mean, this policy document, that is what we should be seeing. Above, brilliant ideas, hourly rates. Yeah, the hourly rate is brilliant. It comes with its own cost, I would say. We should expect, yes, wage to go up for workers, but again, cost of goods and services will also increase, because, employers and companies will have cater for that in order to be able to pay those high wages, and which will directly also impact and in terms of the efficiencies we see with our lawmakers too, whether we like it or not, directly or indirectly, this will lead to the birth of part-time legislating in lawmaking in our system.
which would be
It's
good, right?
brilliant, but yeah, which would be good. I mean, we've been talking about how to get that into Nigeria, but indirectly, this will definitely make it happen if we are able to pull it off. What worries me is that revenue. How are we going to get revenue? Who is going to
You know what? Honest,
ge-
Ken, honestly speaking to you, I don't think revenues, and I'm being very honest, I don't think revenues is the problem in Nigeria. Let me give you an example, clear example. I saw the annual report from NAPIMS. You know NAPIMS? NAPIMS is the organization that manage. When you see NNPC, NNPC is just the corporation. NAPIMS are the ones that run the contracts that make
yes, yes,
NNPC. Did you see the NNPIMS budget? Please, guys, go online, Google NAPIMS audited
yes,
report. NNPC. Google the NNPC. Look at their reports. You see NAPIMS. Google NAPIMS. These guys are spending 89 billion on, is it PR? Look how much
on
they're spending
PR.
on
Yes, I saw that.
PR. 89
Yeah,
postage. Look at what they are spending on, just wasting money. All you need to do for me is, if you come as a president, yeah, you simply call all the MDAs and say, all the MDAs, I want you to increase your revenues by 100%, all of them. But I want you to cap your expenses at 25%. If you can't do it as a CEO of this MDA, just resign now and go. Let's get somebody else. Increase your revenues by 100%, cap your expenses today, cap it at 25%. If you can't do it, drop your letter. Let's get somebody else to do it. There's no fight in this matter. Revenues in Nigeria need to go up, but the waste is the problem.
no. I mean, you said it all. I was actually heading to that point, of saying that we actually have the capacity to generate this revenue, but who, I mean, permit me to say, would have the balls to come and make these needed changes that we really desire in the country.
That's a good.
And
I think
you understand who is that?
that's a good question. And that's
Who's
who do
that
you
lead?
think? Who do you think,
I
sir?
don't
Don't you don't
doing
have to answer
doing
the question.
anything. I don't see the guys from the major political parties doing that. To be honest, I don't see
I
them
think
doing
there's
that.
one guy. Go there, but I think so you need a disruptor. You need a guy
Exactly.
that can
Yes.
go in
Yes.
and
Yes.
spoil things. You don't need a guy that has been
Exactly.
there before or who
Thank
owe
you.
him due, or you need a guy
Thank
that was
you.
going to go to that Nigeria and quote unquote peaceful scatter, just scatter things. Go
Exactly.
to
Yes.
fire there and say we're going to run this place like an MDA for the Nigerian people. How
Thank
all
you.
the
Yeah.
oil we sell goes to pay salaries of civil service workers. All. What kind of nation is this? God gives you crude oil, then only civil servants get there from crude oil. Only them. Let's
Exactly.
get
Yeah.
cost in here. Let me get someone in here. Let's get cost in here. Ken, thanks a lot. Cost, you've got the floor, sir.
Hello, Carlo. How you doing?
I'm very well.
So, Carlo, yeah, it's quite a good space we're having today. But like surprisingly, you asked that how are we funding this, how are the politicians funding these promises and making. So, I remind you, my candidate is Obi, and I'll specifically speak for Obi. Obi said something that instead of you to look at his paper, look at what he's been saying. And one
Nah,
thing he have always said is that the main thing is cutting the cost of governance. If we are to be, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, if we are to be, truthful to ourselves, just as Ken said, Obi probably was one of the people that emphasized the money we are losing through NMPC alone, the money we are losing through the pipelines that we don't know where they are running to. So if he has the balls to say it, he also have the balls to execute it. Now there are two ways we can create revenue. It's either we reduce expenses or we increase income. So by the time we reduce this expense, that comes from cost of governance, there's already lots of money coming in. We're not talking about only NAPIMS. We are talking about the guys in MPA. We are talking about the guys in mineral resources, undeclared profits. In fact, unmonitored profit, not even declared. It's not monitored, talk more of declared. Now we are looking at allocations that goes to people's pockets straight up. Now, using the pay per hour, I've been hearing people talk about this. And when I try to explain to people, I use AWS and Azure. Now, companies in tech, many of them are majorly moving to AWS, where you're able to pay for the data for your data storages per the time you use it, because yearly subscription, monthly subscription are way more expensive. For private sectors, paying monthly is expensive. For the person that is asking how it is going to benefit employers, it's very expensive in the sense that if you pay me per hour and I produce 100 blades of razor in an hour, I know that I'm producing 100 blades. And then in that hour, if I'm making like 500 selling that razor blades and I pay you 100, it's a good deal for me. So now they are going to make more profit. Secondly, it's going to increase productivity in the sense that now producers will see a reason to have a night shift. In Nigeria, at night, there's no production. A whole 12 hours, no production. In fact, a whole 16 hours, we run 8 hours production basis in Nigeria. You start by 8, you close by 4. So that is going to increase production massively. Secondly, let's look at ghost workers. I was in NPC for some time, and like you come into an office, year in, year out, you see an empty desk. If they are clocking in, if we use a key card in many of these ventures, you won't be having those empty people collecting salaries. Probably those people, they are not even in Nigeria. They're not even in, many of them are not even be existing. But this is Nigeria where everything goes, actually, so nobody cares. Then let's also look at private sectors, for example, people calling sick, whether they are sick or not. If you are paid per hour, people that have gone to study in the UK, in the US, in Norway, Denmark, they know these things. Let's not act like we've not been to civil society. If you are paid per hour, even when you are sick, you find a way to get yourself to work because you know you have to earn a living. But in Nigeria, it's raining, you call in and say, oh, I'm having this. And then some people call in sick for 1 week. And then we ask why we are not producing. For us to attain balance equilibrium and leave this equilibrium, we actually need to increase our production. And P2B is spot on that policy. He's very spot on. Then let's look at another thing is making policy. Another thing is the Cobra effect that policy is going to, awake. In Nigeria, we have smart people. The Nigerian populace are far smarter than the government. You can't compare. You see the CBN policy, some of them are good, some of them are bad. But the thing is, like just the last one the CBN governor made, he created a panic. People are rushing to the BDC, and now the bounce back effect is to arrest BDC. It makes sense to us, in quotes. Now, let us also look at the 5 naira per dollar policy. Good policy, in quotes, if it's meant to bring in, foreign remittances. But this is still Nigeria, where people are far smarter than the government. What do? They revolve this money among themselves. They make more money. Look at the NSP from A rate, the thing the CBN also created. So you are talking about people that are way far smarter than the government. So you are looking at a government that you are looking at, if you are talking about government of choice, if we are looking at the manifestos, we are looking at whose government is. It's not about the politicians now. It's about the happiness of Nigerians, which includes the politicians. So, for me, the pay per hour is the number one game changer Obi is bringing. The second thing in that manifesto that I can point out is where he talked about improving the funds for SMEs. Because the thing in Nigeria, we have funds. It's surprising to tell people that we have what they call National Housing Fund. You can actually access money to, borrow money to build a house if you're earning if you're in a particular level. Carlo, you can agree with me with that or clarify me better because I'm not so sure about that, but there is something like that. But in Nigeria, these funds are not accessible. You have the Bank of Industry funds. Are they accessible? No. So the thing is, Obi have also spoken about how do we make these funds accessible? Because accessible, there will be production, GDP growth. We start attaining budget surplus in maybe the near future. Economic surplus in the near future. Obi have also addressed that. Hello, Carlo.
Yeah, very quick. So I can cycle other folks in.
Okay, so like, I can just wrap it up here. So like for me, it would be many of his policies, even including the ones that he talked about trying to increase the budget for STEM, that is well there because many of Nigerians that are traveling now, they are traveling based on STEM, nurses, doctors. And if we can increase these allocations and find a way to earn remittances through taxation, anything they have to pay back to the home country, it's a whole game changer for Nigeria. You will see everything growing and you will see the issue of funding. It will all be gone. Thank you, Carlo.
Super. And I'm trying to get ladies to speak, please, because ladies, quote unquote, are more involved in the budget thing. They drive the household budget and all that. Not being sexy, just making that general point. So, I mean, if you're a lady, please just hands up and I'll just find you and I'll get you to speak. I want it to be a very inclusive space. I got Ifoma on your Buchi. Go for it.
Hi, thank you so much, Kalu.
Could you speak up? You're kind of faint.
Can you hear me better?
A lot, but yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think this is a very exciting conversation, and I have still followed Peter B, his conversation when he was traveling abroad and speaking. I'm sure he must have had a lot of conversation with Nigerians in diaspora. And what I particularly like about his intended policies is trying to make Nigeria a fiscal state, which he has consistently talked about over the course of his campaign, and more like broad general taxation on tariffs and income taxes and everything. Because as a civil society actor, I'm looking at it from the point of building trust and accountability. Over time, we talk about social contract between government and people. How do you build trust? Lots of Nigerians evade taxes, and we don't have diversified economy. Everybody's just looking at hoping to to look at what is happening in the extractive sector. Uh, even when there is oil boom, we don't get as much as we should because of rent seeking and all the mess that happened in that sector. And I think it's a very smart move that he's thinking about tax accruing revenue through tax. Because if you look at Nigerians, for example, only in UK who are living in UK, this is how they earn in terms of the hourly rate. And look at UK is also like a tax state too, and is dependent on tax. And I'm also thinking about the opportunity that this is bringing, which a lot of people has actually talked about. Labor is cheap in Nigeria, and that's why it's creating a lot of inequality between the productive demographic, which are the youth who are being underdeveloped, underutilized. And I think this is really going to boost productivity, boost seriousness and a financial capacity for people to actually pay taxes. So I think it's a very smart move, and it's something that we need to encourage. But what I'm sort of not really quite sure about that, which this conversation is making clear, is how the policy framework is going to work for this. Who is going to implement it? The street level bureaucrat, the institutions, and everything. It's how all these multiple pieces will be put together and how we're going to implement it, because implementation deficit has always been the issue with Nigeria. And if it's going to be like the same civil service without overhauling some of these structural challenges we are having currently, then that's where the hiccup is going to be. So I think it's a very smart move, if you ask me.
I'm going to come to you, Prince, and I just think that let's just make the point if I was making again, and I've also made. Labor in Nigeria is too cheap. That's one cause of poverty. It's simply too cheap, and you guys know it. You go to a shop, you see a girl there, her job is to wash plates. How much is she being paid? 1,000 naira. You have people that go to the village and bring people to do house boy, house girl. How much are they being paid? You see drivers, conductors, so they say, I'm employed. They are underemployed. It's legal, quote, I'm trying to be a nice word here. It's not slavery, but it's somewhat to indentured labor. Labor is too cheap. You can't kill poverty if you are paying people 30,000 naira per month. It's not going to happen. Prince, I've got you on the floor. Go for it.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of people have said a whole lot and I've been listening, so I won't want to do tautology. So I will just make a quick submission by appreciating the host and the listeners on this case. And what thing I just really want to let people know that gladdens my heart is this. One, that issue of hourly payments. The advantage of that hourly payment, I realize, is this. One, it will make Nigerian employers to really be top on their game by working according to how they need to work. That means monkey will not be working, babu will not be eating. That is one. Because a lot of employers you see right now are people who use the it's like they use them to work and work and work and even hold their destiny down. Like somebody who is into programming, who can work from home, who can attend to 2 to 3, 4 banks or 2 to 3, 4 organizations, they will want to tame him down and they will tell him, you cannot go, you will work with us. You understand? But when that per hourly is being done, what they will now do is that they will now only ask that person when they need him and the hour he needs to finish that job. And once he is done, he will be free to go to another place and work. Summary is that employees and employers will have timetable. They will have a clear timetable to know when and how to work and how to finish and how to pay. That will be the advantage. And another thing again about the manifesto, Peter Obi has always been saying this, and we Nigerians should know this. A bad man will never tell you that he's a bad person. He will tell you the sweet word as a man to toast a woman. A good man can never tell you a bad word, as in say that he's bad. He will still tell you the sweet word as he is as a man to talk to a woman. But by their fruits, their friends, their lifestyle, you shall definitely know them. So that was why Peter Obi is telling them that forget this manifesto, I will give you, but look into my eyes and my life. Look at those same people you are seeing that they can employ expatriates from abroad anywhere to sit down and write a bogus manifesto that you will read and read as if you are reading super story. But look at them. Do you see them as people who even know what was even written there? Do you see them as people who can sit down and start to implement those things word by word? It's all about our constitution. How many of them has obeyed the constitution? DSS will arrest somebody, police will arrest you, that they will take you to court so that court will give judgment. Court will now say, release this person. They will say, no, court, that's not what we want. Then why did you went to go and meet court in the first place? In summary, what I'm trying to say is that Peter Obi is a man that I have listened to him from the depth of my heart. I watch him. My brother, that man will never fail Nigeria. He's the first person in my life I have ever trusted in terms of politics. So what I'm trying to say is that what Peter Obi will do is even beyond that manifesto you are saying. He will do this, and from Peter Obi, not possible. And I'm telling you, real citizens who have been under their shell, that have been afraid that politics is a dirty game, will start springing forth to start doing the right thing. And I'm telling you, Nigeria will be liberated. That is all I just have to say. Thank you all, and God bless you. I yield the mic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Let me just say this, right? The only exception I will give to a candidate not giving his plans is on security. Apart from security, I don't want any candidate to tell me how he's going to do that because I don't want him to give the clues to the bad guys, right? But I think every candidate must give a detailed manifesto. I get both arguments. I hear what you're saying. There is sense in what we have to have the documentation, especially how you are going to pay for it. I get it, but I think it's important that we make sure we make that point to people. Let's get. Let me look. Ify, I've got Ify. I've got David.
That's fine. Hi, Kalu.
Sorry about
It's Ifeimika, by the way.
Ifeanyi.
Thank you for the space and very great points that have been raised. I have three real quick if I can get them in. Thank you for making that clarification about the hourly rate. I think it's very important to note that, yes, it is not just taking that annual rate and dividing it by 12, divide by 30 to get a number that you call, and it's more, it's like you rightly pointed out, it is costing your time per hour, right? I think one thing that we didn't mention is the issue of overtime, which means that we're going to have to set a standard number of hours per week or per day that people are going to work, right? So that if an employer wants someone to work more than let's say 8 hours, because that's the most popular, right? That they're going to have to pay an additional amount, a different rate, apart from the regular one. And regardless of how you want to look at it, right? If they decide that we want this one person to work more than 8 hours, we're going to pay them more. That's a plus for that person who is working the extra hours. And if they decide that we're just going to get another person to do the extra work, the extra hours, and pay them the same rate, that's one more person that can get into the job market, right? So win-win, as I see it. Excuse me. The second thing I wanted to mention is CREST. Excellent. I think that will just really cut down the cost of governance and reduce waste. And I think it's also going to attract people that have the right incentive to serve. So I have no issues with that. I love it. The one thing you mentioned, and I'm glad you that it's controversial, is the fact that it's the issue of prohibiting public servants from sending their kids to school abroad. I have an issue with that. I'm an ardent supporter of Peter Obi, but that is the one thing in this manifesto that I take issue to. I believe that people should not benefit unduly from public office, but I do not think that people who are related to public office holders need to be punished for the fact that someone they're related to decided to serve. I think we solve that problem by plugging the loopholes so that people cannot steal from public office, that they're not benefiting unduly from it. But if people work hard, regardless whether it's public sector or private sector, that they work hard and they earn their money, they need to be free to spend that money where they see fit, how they see fit. So that's my short contribution.
In the spirit, right? I agree with you in the spirit of that, allowing this, this democracy of spending your own money abroad and all that. I agree with you, but I think the problem why it fails is this: anyhow you look at it, there are going to be some bad eggs that will sneak in, and then it becomes difficult to manage that policy. Okay, do we allow the guy that came from America already, or do we allow the guy that already has a business? Then people sneaking, it becomes confusing. I think a blanket ban, I would say on elected officials. I would leave civil servants for now. I would say if you want to be elected, you have a choice. So you can say, okay, I want to serve Nigeria. This means I'm going to take lower salary. Donald Trump took $1 salary, right? You can say you want to sacrifice and not go abroad. And it's not going to happen day one because hospitals and schools in Nigeria are bad. So I would say for the first 4 years, you might say the policy but not implement it. But I would say in 4 years' time, you should really not have anyone in your own the hospitals, right? Going abroad to get a medical checkup or educating his kids abroad. That was how I would say it operationally. But I think to say it as an idea has a lot of currency. And I think that's something that we should hold on to, the currency of allowing folks to be in Nigeria. And I don't know if anyone, are you in HR? Do you work in HR?
No, I don't.
Okay. I want to engage a few HR folks, talk about hourly wage, non-partisan, just to talk about it so people understand. There's a lot of misconception about it. I think you made a point I didn't make about the fact that if the employer selects who to pay, does release folks to out and opportunities for other folks to come in. So a lot of wage mobility in the economy. You can work for a bank and go work for someone else and all that. So good points. Thank you so much.
Just one last thing, if you permit me, just about what you said with the quality of schools. I just wanted to point out that, and I don't have a problem with mandating people to go to medical to receive medical care in the country. I think that's a question of standard. But when it comes to education, I think there's a little more that goes into that decision than the quality of the school. I think there is a huge benefit in exchange of ideas and exposure to other cultures that we're not taking it into account. Maybe for the officials themselves, we can say, yes, while you're in office, you cannot go to school abroad, but to restrict their relatives from taking advantage of a different perspective of education is something that I have a problem with.
I mean, no one's going to argue with anyone that disagrees with this policy. I think it's just two policies that are fighting because both sides of the argument have their own, should we say, the logos of both sides of the argument make sense. So no one's going to say what you're saying is wrong. I just think in the end, we know what we're trying to achieve here. We want the local schools and the local hospitals to be as good as the guys are brought. And that's really what we want to achieve. So if eventually we reach a compromise and we say this is how we're going to do it and it works for us, brilliant. I think all Nigerians would be happy. So no fight on that. Let's leave it at that. Let me get Winnie in here. I've got Winnie. I'm trying to get the ladies to speak, guys. So just give me a few seconds. Let me just play the ladies and then we'll come back to the guys. Winnie, you've got the floor. Go for it. Winnie going once. Winnie going twice. I'm going to move on. I don't hear you coming on to the mic. Let's get Genan. Garantix. Garantix. Jeez, I can't pronounce names. I'm so sorry.
Quarantine. That's fine.
There you go. Go for
Hey,
it.
how you all doing? Thanks so much for being part of this. I think it's a good thing that in the first place we're having this conversation, and that's only possible because Peter Obi is able to outline his plans. And firstly, I want to say that I see the manifesto more like a way of trying to tell us the direction he's going to go. And I don't think that it's going to be something day one. There will be phases to it. In terms of first, I want to focus more on Peter Obi going based on how we know how he governs. When he was in Anambra State, we know he's somebody who likes to engage intelligent people who would ask him questions, and people who would disagree with him. So I see this manifesto like something that will be modified, and of course, on day one, we know the first problem we're talking about hourly wage, but the first problem comes is how many jobs do we have out there? So for people who are talking about jumping from one job after working a few hours and going to another job, in the first place, there are many people who are unemployed to even get a job. So that's one person he will be addressing that based on what we've already seen on his plan and what he's been saying, traveling here and there, and also during the interviews. So possibly he would have a 4-year plan, and he may roll it out in phases. And there's so much I wanted to say, but it seemed like the past few speakers already addressed it. So I want to focus more on things that may not have been touched, also to give room for other speakers. So number of jobs, one. Secondly, there's going to be room for under the table. We know how it is in the United States, and I guess also in other parts of the world. It was a minimum wage because the whole idea of hourly pay will bring the conversation of minimum wage per hour. So there'll be lots of people, especially in the private sector, lots of employers who would want to employ people under the table, and that means.
But that only work in the US because they don't have papers. I don't think there is any legal worker in America that will receive less than the minimum.
Yeah, the reason being why I think that will be an issue here is because of employers who don't want to pay the minimum. As I just applying that many people don't have jobs, so many people will willing to take.
Remember, it's an offense. It's like you're not paying your pension now. Like in Nigeria right today, if you don't pay pension schemes, if you don't pay the contribution, it's an offense. If they catch you, they make you pay back pay with interest, and it goes all to the employee. It's a big risk to take to say I'm going to employ someone and not pay him the minimum. Let's say this law was operational. It's a big risk for any business to take. And in America, it's only the guys that are illegal, that have no paperwork. There have been guys that have been appointed to the government office. I know a lady that was going to run for the governor of California, and she lost somewhat because she employed a housemaid with that she wasn't paying minimum wage. The person was employed a housemaid, and it came up that she was employing this person without paying the minimum, and she lost the governorship. That was the former lady that was on eBay or so. So it's a big risk. I hear you. We're not going to have 100% compliance.
Yes,
but what it does is that it sets a minimum bar that you must pay folks per hour this way. And if you don't pay, it's illegal. You can get sued. I mean, why take that chance? If you can't pay for 8 hours, pay for 4 hours, pay for 1 hour. That way, you then, like someone has said earlier before, you structure your organization in such a way that you use labor appropriately. Just like power supply, you put generator on as a barber once the guy is on your chair. You don't see them put generator on when they're watching TV. They actually on their chair, then they go and put generator on. They cut your hair, they put it off. But labor is cheap, so they will hire one guy to stay in the shop 24 hours and sweep hair. But if that guy was going to sweep hair and you pay him per hour, they will only bring the guy in to sweep the hair and pay the guy. And like someone else also said, why be in traffic from 6 a.m. to get to work by 9 a.m.? You might as well walk across the street and walk in Liquidju. Why go all the way to Lekki? So it will change a lot of things. It will force governments, employers, and people to look at labor as a cost, not this free, cheap thing that God gave you from. It's not manna. People's work education is not money. Okay, let me get some other guys in here. I've got Lucky,
Can I just chip one thing
Chiwike.
real quick?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah. The quick fix to these, I think, really immediately we'll see the impact in the public sector, because we know that many people are more like ghost workers, even though they're in the payroll, because they probably just spend 2 or 3 hours, walk away, and still get paid. So I think that's the quick fix.
I agree.
That's a good thing.
If we fix that, I think we've gotten a lot. If you just only fix us civil service, I think we've got a pick out of there. Hey, Lucky, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Thank you, Garen. Lucky, you've got the floor.
Yeah, Kalu, good evening. Thank you for this space, right? I'll just dwell on the hourly pay, really. So just about one of the Nigerians abuse a lot is time. I mean, whether you look at it from the consumer or the producer side.
True.
Look, time is the currency in every serious country across the world. The value of time and for time is a fundamental difference between those countries that are working and the rest of us. So this is it. The moment you are able to master your time, other things actually just come along, all things being equal. And I'm glad Peter Obi sees this, as the most critical element of his consumption to production, manner. Like you rightly said, mentioned here, one of the things that this hourly pay will help us address is the issue of ghost workers. It will now be very interesting to see and wait and see the ghosts, so to speak, work in, do their own jobs and get paid, right? But to be honest, this policy will not thrive in itself alone. There are other infrastructures that I think, should be put in place to really make this, meaningful. One of such, and I guess someone also mentioned it here, is transportation. Our transportation infrastructure has to go hand in hand with this time-driven economy. So reduce the loss of time and efficiency owing to our current poor, transport infrastructure. Let's flip over to the other side, the civil service and political appointees' salaries. It is long overdue. Carlos, some days ago, lecturers at PhD level, right, received 71,000 naira for October salary. That's like half of their salary. Meanwhile, a political appointee, who is probably, a HND or even an OND holder, at the federal level, went home with almost 1 million naira after tax. This thing is not normal anywhere else except in Nigeria.
True.
This will be a game changer in the political space. At least finally we can begin to truly have some sane human beings in the political corridor. I yield the mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me get Winnie. Let me see if you're ready to speak, Winnie. Otherwise, I take you off. Winnie, you've got the floor. Winnie going once, Winnie going twice. Let's get Portable. Portable, how are you doing, sir? Is it Ma? Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you're speaking from. And Kalu, thank you for the opportunity given to me to speak. Now the early pay is a good one. It's cool. It will help the economy grow, and it will help people work. And I think when you talk about hourly pay, there should be a limit as to how many hours one is expected to work, of which I know the minimum of work is 8 hours. And I think this is where the idea of shifts comes in. There could be morning shift, afternoon shift, and possibly night shift or evening shift. And then this helps in the sense that you are being paid according to when you work. If you decide you can't do an 8-hour shift, you can cover a 4-hour shift. And some people who can work will be able to go to another place to work, and that goes hand in hand with transportation, just as a previous speaker mentioned. Because we waste lots of manpower on our roads. Our means of transportation is rubbish. Sorry to use that word, but it's not helpful. So if our transport system could be improved and create employment, this is a beautiful way of creating employment. Everybody can get work. I have my worries about this. First of all, Nigeria is not yet organized, because when you work hourly, you get to be paid fortnightly, and I don't think it should be monthly, because paying monthly, I don't know, it has a way of demoralizing one. But when someone works and he knows, oh, I'm being charged hourly, and I'm sure I'm gonna get my salary in the next 2 weeks, it's encouraging. It makes one put in his or her best to work. And then after working, you should be able to get a pay slip to know you're being paid, and if you're being underpaid or being overpaid. And just as I said, Nigeria is not organized, so we don't even know ourselves. There are no addresses. We don't know who is working. We don't know when who works is working. An organized society like where I am, when you come into work, you get your tax file number. This tax file number identifies every individual where you work. When you get paid fortnightly, you pay your tax as well. And that tax, you see government working with your tax. You feel good. You work, your tax is also working. And then whoever pays must pay your pension. I don't know if Nigeria does that. That's something we need to look into as well. Paying of pension for workers. It's just like some of these sales people, sales girls or sales boys in others private sectors. They just work for the sake of it. No pension, nothing to
That is true.
rely on at the end of the day. So these are some of the things we need to look into as a country. Our system needs to be organized.
True.
Hourly pay is a beautiful thing, but it goes a long way.
It
Pay
has to
slip have to come
be
in.
other stuff, like you said. And
Yes.
again, just to make this point, because I'm not trying to be sexist here, but perhaps you are married and you've got kids at home. You could say, I'm going to work from 9 a.m. to say
Perfect.
when
That is it.
are in school. So you go
Yes.
work, and you legal work. You work,
Yes.
come back at home, and you can work, right? So it's not just the income side, it's the societal way it's all broken down now. You get full employment.
That's it.
You
Yes.
part-time employment. If you're pregnant, you can just work at so hours, keep yourself safe and healthy and all that kind of stuff. So it does a lot. That's why I did started off with it, because if that passes, that changes a lot of things. Those boys in Ado Ekiti, they could work in the bank as a then go back home and work for themselves, and because they've got this fiber optics, they've got other things that is in this plan. So it's not this plan. I would say this, right? Someone connected many dots. It's someone sat down and said, we want to get here. Let's connect this dot, this dot, this dot, and it takes us here. The other plans I've seen are very, very good. I saw we want to do housing policy in the Tinubu plan. I like that a lot, the way they structured it. I saw some other things, but this one, to my mind, is a lot connected. The parts are a lot connected. Someone is really saying, we want to achieve this. Let's do it this. So that's my. Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling in, Paul. Do you want to have anything else to say, or you're good?
Well, that's it. Thank you for
Okay,
the
so
opportunity to speak.
I appreciate that. Akin, hi, you've got the floor. Akin, go ahead. Akin, you there? Okay, Dr. Croc, since Aki is going to hop, I want Aki to speak on this. Dr. Croc, you've got the floor. That's Dr. Croc.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Kalu. See, these politicians, they have three reasons why they go into this politics. One of them is money. We know somebody like Buhari doesn't need any money to do politics. Somebody like Atiku is a very dangerous man. He's motivated by money, power, and fame. Now, I just finished conducting a 6-month research on satellite. I won't publish it. It's yet to be published, but I won't speak about it because there was only one candidate that spoke about how we can use satellite for security reasons and civilian satellite all over Nigeria. Now, somebody spoke earlier about Peter Obi, the idea he brought about a public servant not sending their children to school abroad. These ideas have been in practice already. They do it in China. If you check out, as a politician in China, you cannot have dual citizenship in any country. Your kids are not even allowed to study abroad. Some of them do it in secret. So these are ideas that we can implement. First of all, this idea of working and being paid per hour, one of the 3 reasons why these politicians join politics is money. If you can demonetize politics in Nigeria, for example, make it unattractive in Nigeria, we'll solve half of our problem. Most of them are going there because they will make money. A lot of them say we're going to pay a politician will be paid the same thing as an engineer or a doctor. A lot of people will be discouraged to go into politics. These are the ideas that we need to promote. So Peter will be proposing that they should not send, if you have your kids abroad or your family or you have properties or business abroad, you are automatically disqualified to go into politics. It will discourage a lot of people. These are some of the things that we need to do. As little as they are, is going to put a lot of positive things. So I yield the mic.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that point real quick. Aki, are you okay to speak now? Or let me get EB in here. EB, you've got the floor, sir.
Oh, hi. Thanks. Big point from everyone. Good evening, Kalu.
Yeah.
And awesome space as well. I'll be very quick. I think, and I'll dwell a lot on the per hour.
Let me have you just speak up just a bit, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just dwell a bit more on the per hourly wages. Right. I think it's a very great idea. I think it's going to drive productivity significantly, like everyone have already mentioned. One area I think we might want to also look at is the area of conflicting interest. And so, if you have folks working on different jobs with similar employee or employer rather, you want to have a framework in place that ensure that interests are not conflicting, especially with competitors, right? And because we are just adopting this practice, I sense that we might have that challenge at the early days. I mean, it's an implementation concern, but it's something we also to look out for. Also, regarding transportation, I think one thing that's very important to understand is that we have left this very critical sector to the hands of a very unorganized group, which is the NURTW, which is very alarming, right? When you imagine the amount that NURTW in Lagos that's Oyo State, to make in a day, it's overwhelming.
What's
right?
ARW? What's
NURTW? NURTW.
That's the Pact, the Pact outs, Pact,
Exactly, yes. That's the Union for Road Workers Association, essentially, right? They are the ones in charge of the entire country's transportation system. I mean road transport, right? And it's very concerning. I think we need to look into it. I think I don't think that amount of power should be, especially for a sector like that, should be in the hands of folks that are not educated. Because it's a very critical sector, and nobody's paying attention to the fact that we have left it to the hands of folks that cannot really manage the growth of that sector. Yes, they can. I mean, look at the way money is collected today in ARW. You have folks out on the road, using a marker to mark your boss and collect 20, 50, 100 naira, 200, or even 500. And they do that consistently. I mean, we can't continue like this, right? And these are things that are actually empowering the thugs you have that are disrupting elections, right? So we want to look into it and want to ensure that you can transition that from from an unstructured group to a more structured group managing that space. If you can do that, you can improve efficiency in that sector, and then you would have a case where your per hour wages would rest easily. Because if you are doing multiple jobs and you can't go from point A to point B at a specific time T, there's going to be a problem. And that will even make, I know when you have issues like this, it begins to stress test the viability of a supposedly viable model. And you don't want that to be the case. So that's essentially what I want to point out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good point. Again, very, it's not even an issue. They allow them to stay because they are used for other stuff. I mean, any government can get rid of them in 1 hour. 1 hour. So let's not even, it doesn't mean anything at all. Aki, your point is valid. I'm just saying that they are allowed to remain there because they are useful to the folks that use them. If any government wants to get rid of NURTW, it's a 30-minute operation, and we all know it. Aki, please go for it.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can, but if you speak up, I would love it.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Perfectly now. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So my point is, also I would like to make some certain observations about this thing of the about the Peter Obi thing, but to start with the hourly rates, I think we are really giving the Obi campaign too much grace, because if you really think about it, it's not a radical policy in any way. The reason being that, yes, it could help in business planning for entrepreneurs and business owners, but I hear that somehow people would sit down and start thinking, oh, where can I use my labor much more in the economy? Is not really how it would play out in the real world. Because first and foremost, we have a high level of unemployment. So there is always still a downward pressure on wages throughout the entire economy because of the high levels of unemployment in the economy. So I don't think it would make any impact on the employment levels. I don't think it would that economic people will think in this mathematical or extremely rational way that we are assuming that they should think like. I don't think it's going to make any impact in that sense. Also, I don't think that it will be easily enforceable, because we have millions of businesses, both formal and informal, and we actually have a lot of informal businesses. How would you enforce all these things when you go to the market? Will you be sending government agents to go to those places to enforce the new legislation? I think it's easier said than done. On the issue of banning people from civil servants from sending their children abroad, in theory, I would agree with it. In practice, I don't think it's really possible, because there are so many ways to get around it. For instance, you could start having a spike in people in civil servants, and our civil servants. Let me not stereotype them, but we do have a lot of really corny people in our civil service. You could have a situation of spike in the issuance of fake birth certificates, for instance. You could have a situation where people will start sort of funny changing their names and all of these types of things. I think it's just not something that is workable in the way we think it's going to be workable. Then I would say this, that the OB team should really sit down and have a shadow policy or shadow policies, because a lot of what they're claiming they want to do, you want to move Nigeria to a production economy. These things, as Kelvin said, cost money. These are real resources that Nigeria does not have to spend. And one or even day 10 or month 10, they may have to go into negotiations with the IMF and with the Paris Club with regards to renegotiating the national debt. And that would basically upend every single thing that they have been talking about. So they need to have a shadow policy that they will be able to implement that is much more politically feasible and viable than just basically saying a lot of things that the typical Nigerian wants to hear, but is not feasible or is not workable in the real sense of it. And I think this is talking about people just saying, oh, he's talking about, he's
Like
talking
what?
about. He can't do
Akin,
these things
like
in real
what?
world.
Like what?
For instance, okay. So for instance, instead of saying, okay, oh, you want to do infrastructure, you want to, um, for instance, you want to improve education and all of that. These are very
No,
difficult
I
policies.
want to give me an example of something that they've said that Nigerians want to hear but cannot be implemented.
Okay, so for instance, he's talking about how you want Nigeria to be more of a producer economy, and we need to invest in infrastructure and all of that. Yes, every Nigerians want to hear these things. These are actually good ideas, but in practice, there is no money to do these things. The best that he could
I
do.
heard him say, Akin, he said that he wants to do PPP, not just PPP. He wants to
Okay,
do community and philanthropy PPP. If you listen to what he's saying, he's essentially saying that, for
okay,
instance, in Ohafia, my village now, the folks from Ohafia that live in Atlanta and, say, Germany can come together and issue an impact bond. And that bond could build roads or water supply in Ohafia under a PPP, which means that the guys that invest in that bond will not pay taxes. My money comes from the US, from Germany. It goes straight to Nigeria at 1% because an impact bond, it's PPP. That's what he's saying. That removes the economic impact of the bond. It's no longer a commercial bond, but it's an impact bond the same way, because right now the same guys from Ohafia contribute money and send as remittances, but it's for welfare. We're going to build a road. We're going to build power supply. They do the exact same thing, but it's informal. He's saying we're going to do a PPP blended with infrastructure and philanthropy. So it moves from informal to formal. It's a bond. You would buy it
okay.
in the US. That's what he's laid out.
So the thing is, I was actually going to get to that point that he would probably have to resort to a PPP sort of funding, but there is a very big problem with PPP funding. You use the instance of Ohafia. Okay, there are probably a lot of Ohafia residents that are multimillionaires and living in Lagos and the US and all these other places. What do you say about someone that is from Zungeru in Niger State, where they may not have a lot of people from those places that
Then the
that
government
that that
will then
well that
spend then the government will then spend money there. We cannot have the same level across Nigeria. Certain
I
states in
understand.
Nigeria,
I understand
even
that.
in the southwest, certain folks from, say, Ijebu are a lot in Atlanta. Not everyone in the southwest is from every local government. So the ones that can do the impact bonds will do it. The ones that have no one abroad that can do those impact bonds will then say the government should come and invest, and the government will do it. Same in America. In America,
Okay,
when they do, go ahead.
okay. Then the thing is, one of the problems. So that's one part of the one issue with the PPP. The second part is also a lot of projects that the PPP, especially with infrastructure investments or private could actually invest in terms of PPP, would mostly focus on the commercial hubs of the country. So you would have a situation where
I,
most PPP
again,
funds will get to will basically be
again, I have to
in a
interrupt you.
handful of states.
The proposal says philanthropy. It's clearly stated there that this is going to be a philanthropic blended PPP, meaning it's not going to be commercial. The same folks in Ohafia that are sending money informally would send money now formally but philanthropically. It's not commercial, which means I want to build water in Ohafia, Abia State. I am not doing it to make a return. I can accept 1% on my bond for 100 years, but it will be formalized to pass through Infrastructure Regulatory Commission. It will be registered in the stock exchange. I would invest in it not to make a return or beat inflation, but to invest and get money to Ohafia to build water. It's right there in the manifesto. Philanthropic blended PPP. It's right
Okay, and
there.
how much do you think we'll be able to raise from that?
If
Would
we
it
are
would
raising
it be able?
25, if we are raising 25 billion on welfare remittances, why can't 50 billion on an impact bond to develop our hometown?
I hope you're right. I really, really do hope you're right. Then also, I feel like personally, I do feel that Nigerians are really not looking at what is going on. I feel there's a lot of feel good talk. So personally, I'd say that the security issue is going to be one of the first things that they will probably face
True,
when they get it.
true,
Then there'll also be the issue of, as I said, the restructuring of national debt. Then
true,
there'll be the issues of reforms, legislative reforms. Now,
true.
look at what the Obasanjo government did in 1999 and 2003. Let us not kid ourselves and think that an OB government will be willing to undertake difficult reforms, knowing that they're going into a re-election where they would very likely will lose votes because these reforms will be very difficult. It will hurt every single person.
Okay.
So don't be surprised that you get people or him changing his mouth once he gets into office, because I can't blame them.
I don't want to speak for their campaign. I don't want to. So I don't want to look as if I'm challenging or speaking for their campaign. But when he says consumption to production, that's a code for something. Little consumption to production, that's a code. What do we consume? Where's the debt going to? I published the debt of Nigeria as at 2020 from Nigerian Bureau, the Debt Management Office. 13% went to quote unquote budget. 13% went to quote unquote economic. What is budget? What is economic? Then you have railways, the rest. What is budget? What is economic? What is that? Who can explain what budget and economic is? But those two guys are 26% of the total debt as at 2020. So he's speaking in code to tell you that we will no longer do consumption. We will rather do production. Hence, if we are borrowing to build dams, not borrowing to pay salary. And he has said this, coded, and he also mentioned it. So if you
Okay,
are
let me.
very perceptive, you will hear where he's going. You are making tough decisions. I don't speak for the campaign, but if Peter Obi
Yeah.
enters office today, do you know why inflation will fall? Because all this money we are using to do nonsense will disappear. All this you will
Okay,
go
so
and buy
Carlo, let
champagne.
me let
Go
me
ahead.
talk about some real things. So we're talking about how on recurrent expenditure and everything. Right, that's very true. Consumption to for instance, let's say they come in, they remove the fuel subsidy. Price of fuel goes from about this thing. So price of fuel goes from about 180 or 200 to say about 400, 500, and you have the price of uh, of travel and everything Nigeria starts to double. That is one group of constituency that you have already angered. They will take that into the next election.
But
Secondly, you get to a situation. So I just want to say something. These are actually real life situations. You come in and you say you're not going to borrow for consumption. So things like recurrent expenditure for for hiring civil servants and everything. And maybe you even want to cut recurrent expenditure. Those are civil servants with mouths to feed, and there's several states in the country with civils that are essentially civil servant states. You cut all those things, you affect the economic activity in those states. Who will they blame? Who will those
yeah, but
irresponsible governors in those states blame? They'll blame
what
the
he's
president.
What he said is that that the federal government will not borrow. He didn't say the private sector will not borrow. The private sector borrows more and can invest more in the federal government. But the federal government itself is not going to go to the international market to borrow in dollars to pay salaries in naira. No sane person does that. That's on that. On fuel subsidy, fuel is expensive, not because of this, there's no subsidy, but the inefficiency in demurrage, in storage, in equalization, and the exchange rate. If you take away the subsidy and you allow free entry and exit to the market of fuel, imported, the price will go down, not go up. It will go up initially, but then the private sector will force it down via competition. No
Okay,
private
let me.
sector person, Aki, is going to
Okay,
pay demurrage because they are more efficient. Nobody's going to bring in crude oil, store it on the high sea, do transshipment, pay nonsense cost at the port because they are inefficient. No private Dangote won't do it. So his
okay.
cost will
So
be
now
lower.
let me ask you this question. Okay, so you're talking about no private sector person will do this. We have a natural experiment of diesel. Diesel is a natural experiment.
Diesel is
Diesel does not.
10,000 a
Diesel is not subsidized.
Aki,
Diesel is not
diesel
subsidized,
in
and the price has
Nigeria is
been.
only 10,000 barrels locally subsidized, locally manufactured in Nigeria. You can't talk about that. There's only one working refinery in Nigeria, and that only has 10,000 barrels a day. What's this? What's the demand? So until we have the Dangote refinery that can produce enough diesel to meet demand, then we can talk of diesel. You can't remove the subsidy on something and say you deregulated it, but there's no crude oil to then test the theory. There's no working refinery in Nigeria. There's none. So how can we test this theory you are saying that diesel has been deregulated? It's still imported. It still passes through the port. You still pay dollars to import it. You still you pay demurrage. So how can we test this theory that diesel is deregulated? We can only test it in a market that has fully deregulated and a working refinery. I can let you go. I can let others come in here and
Sorry,
speak.
just one more thing, and then I'll go. I think the place where I feel they could do a lot of good, as I said, the shadow policy instead of all these manifestos is through the trade policy. Nigeria's trade policy is upside down. It doesn't make any sense. What they could do is basically reduce the tariffs. What Nigeria has been doing is we have decided we're not going to be taxing people or collect taxes through income taxes and everything for people in the informal sector. Instead, what we can and what we've done is we've started using tariffs, excise duties, and everything as a way to raise revenue. I think that is a very wrong way to raise revenue. What we could do instead is enforce the income taxation, both on the informal and formal sectors, and reduce trade tariffs and excise duties for importation of goods, especially for capital goods. I think that would actually have a stimulating effect on investments in Nigeria. I could actually do through fiat, basically through an act of parliament, and that would have a huge impact. So things like tractors, for instance, I know that Nigeria still imposes about, I think, 70% or something on the importation of tractors. Nigeria needs a whole lot of tractors.
We have a tractor manufacturing company in Nigeria. It's in Bauchi, Steyr. All you have to do is to stop consumption and invest in Steyr. They will make tractors in Nigeria, in Bauchi State. So you want to ask the leaders of Nigeria, why is that company in Bauchi not making tractors today? Why we can't make Steyr Bauchi manufacture tractors? Aki, great comment, but we got to let you go. I do agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, you've given the P2B again. Good expo. Shadow government. For me, they should appoint a cabinet. It doesn't have to be your real cabinet. Appoint one that's going to be your economic spokesman, your defense spokesman, your IT spokesman, and speak on policy, what you will do. Don't wait till you are elected. Pretend you are elected. That's just expo. Amoli, how are you doing? You've got the floor, Amoli.
Hi, Prof. Good evening, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I think most of the speakers have really done justice. I agree with some of the speakers. I don't agree with some. And yeah, I think Mr. P2B's draft manifesto, I seem to like it a lot. And but I'm just going to speak about the part of the hourly rate, wage, sorry, that nobody has spoken about. And I have the concerns on how they are going to actually cut labor and health laws. What Okay, yes, hourly wage is good, is great here, is going to promote efficiency, reduce costs, and blah blah blah. But the employer is also not obliged to provide benefits to these hourly workers. And for a country where we have a horrible health system, but employees are able to have access to healthcare just because of HMO and that kind of stuff, I'm concerned. I mean, how is he going to do that? Except, with this new health policy or whatever they signed this year, is the federal government going to subsidize health insurance to employers that would enable them pass this benefits to these hourly workers? That's one. Then also labor laws. Even with the labor laws we have in Nigeria, you have employers acting up. When you implement hourly wage, it's also going to take the responsibility of these employers. I didn't see much of that. I know it's just a draft manifesto, but that's one area where I would really like him to, work on. Or I was hoping when you said you wanted someone from HR to speak, I was actually hoping someone from HR will come and do justice to that, but nobody did that. And those are areas I really have concerns about. Thank you.
If you're in HR and you can talk, deeply into this hourly, just send me a DM. Even if it's not now, I want to have a space on hourly. We'll just do just HR. Just send me a DM. I would love to have one or two of you on the panel and we'll just talk about it, educate. Just send me a DM and we'll do that. But hourly, right? We're talking very, very high level on hourly wage. They have also sent that document that the hourly wage, there's going to be a bill passed. They didn't say we're going to do hourly bill. They said we're going to pass a bill. Because you have to say a lot of things: minimum wage, how many hours will you work, how will this tie in with your health, how will this tie in with your pension. So we really can't say a lot now till that bill is passed. But the idea is what we're talking about. And I think the main idea, if you do economics, the factors of production, human capital is a factor of production. Human capital being too cheap distorts prices in Nigeria. People think they are profitable because they are paying their workers peanuts, right? If you properly price the cost of living in Nigeria, then you understand that you may not be profitable. You also then give those workers a minimum wage that can take them at least home. So let's price things better. Let's get the real cost of doing business. Then when we cannot do that business, we then say, well, the government has got to use the cost of doing power or give us incentives. It's like I heard the argument of ASU folks where you always say the university has passed, what do they call it, certification, but the university has no equipment. So how did the university pass certification? You say a bank pays its workers very, very well, but it's paid its workers on the backs of 100,000, 500,000 a month. Convert that to dollars. That's a high-paying institution. How much do civil servants grade level 8 make? A guy just said a lecturer got less than 100,000 for a month. A professor, less than 100,000 a month in a country that sells crude oil, that has private jets, not one, not two, nearly 6 private jets and private helicopters is paying professors less than 100,000 a month. Embarrassing. Ice, you've got the floor. Let's hear you speak.
Hi, Kalu.
What's going on?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on your space. I want to talk about on Peter Pact. He laid emphasis on the rule of law. And you know something, investors don't actually put their money where the rule of law is shit. I'm talking about Nigeria. We all know quite all right that the rule of law in the country, it's definitely shit. And honestly speaking, the West is already shocked up. And the truth is that people are actually looking for where else to put their money. And the only place left is Africa. We just we actually need leaders to put good policies, ensure there's rule of law, and investors will actually come in because people actually want to put their money in safe. Like example, we saw what happened in Kogi State when talks invaded the Dangote facilities. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And investors, they see these, and these are not stuff people should be in. So if emphasis is actually placed on the rule of law, it's going to increase our FDI, and that's for that. Also, sometimes we tend to make our problem ambiguous. It's really not that big.
True.
That's the honest truth. I know some people come up and they complain about how we're going to get the revenue. Honestly speaking, to get Nigeria working again is in Nigeria. First of all, we need to block lots of the leakages and also increase our supervision. And you see productivity will actually increase, and it's really going to help the economy. So I'm just going to stop here. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you made a very, very good point. It's all about the policies. It's all about the policies. Let's take your example, Kogi State. Let's assume Kogi State was Nigeria, and the largest company in Nigeria, MTN, was invaded by the agents of the government, FIRS, because they sent it out or they didn't have their guys or their whatever or their cards or whatever. We might be correct. Nigeria might be correct that yes, the MTN broke the law. We might be correct. But when we find them that heavy fine, when we did that stuff we did to MTN, many people took notice and they pulled back. So they went to Ghana, they went to Cote d'Ivoire, they went to Togo because they're not really sure that, listen, if I invest in these people and make this mistake, they will hit me hard. We can argue, yes, they broke the law, let them pay, but capital is mobile. You want to attract capital. Look at what Kogi did. Bloomberg, Dagote, like them or hate them, is the largest capitalized company in Nigeria. They are tracked on Bloomberg. You send vigilantes into that company to shut it down because you say they were supposed to give you shares. How will Dangote, the largest company that is owned by hedge funds, wealth managers in America, cut out shares and give you because you are a government? How? So of course, Bloomberg will report that armed agents have invaded Dangote. Those boys will sit in America. What? The richest man in America's company is invaded by Nigerians. They will simply jack up the risk rating on Nigerian bonds. Nigerian bond risk rating goes up, the price falls, our yield goes up, and our dollar becomes worse. That stuff you folks did in Kogi is why it's also contributing to this thing you are seeing with the dollar. You can argue. You can argue, but economics is very, very limited. You can argue, but you can't go beyond some guardrails. If you don't have good policies, if you drive away investors, it shows up in your risk rating. Google it. Google how much is the yield on Nigerian bonds. Google the yield on Rwandan bonds. Note, the higher your yields, it's not good. So before you say Nigeria has high yields, if your bond yields are high, it's good. So look at Nigerian yields, look at Rwanda's yields. Why is Nigeria with crude oil paying a higher yield than Rwanda with no crude oil? That's homework, guys. Let's get Mr. Phoenix in here. Phoenix, hi, how you doing?
Hey, Kalu, thanks for letting me speak. Hi, everyone.
Yeah,
I think a couple of things that I wanted to speak to. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said there's a common thread when you look at that economic pact that shows exactly the fact that the author, maybe the authors of that pact, are looking at the economy and saying, okay, this is how we need to address the issues there. Firstly, when you have a mantra that says consumption to production, it will be a misnomer if you don't then think about the wage structure. Labor is a factor of production, but you need to be to say you want to create a consumption to production atmosphere. You need to make sure that there is a clear link between productive outcomes and reward. And the wage structure that we have in Nigeria that is tied towards a monthly pay structure and impacts how people get paid when they get paid, how employers think about labor, and most importantly, efficiency. There's no way you go into production and you do not have an hourly wage structure, because the first thing that you begin to get is you get a productive workforce, you get efficiency. You are paying for what is done and what is produced. And so, from an employer perspective, you could end up, I'll give you an example. Today, we have a minimum wage of, I think it's 30K. Now, an employer has to choose whether they can afford to hire somebody to pay 30K or run afoul of the law. Now, if they can hide, they'll hire people and pay them 20K and try and hide. But if they cannot, they have to make sure that their minimum is 30K. But that monthly paycheck, typically, when you think about the 8-hour work day, 40-hour work week, 60 hours of work, perhaps what you only need is 40 hours of work or 80 hours of work or 120 hours of work, but you're being forced to pay 30K. Now it gives you a certain quality of labor. And so if you now go to an hourly pay structure, what it means is that you can pay for that exact 80 hours of work that you want, but even pay a higher rate of pay per hour that will still net out at cheaper than 30,000 naira. So you give yourself that flexibility to make sure that you're linking the production outcomes of the labor that you're employing to the reward that you're paying to your bottom. But also on the employee side, they also have the flexibility because now they're not locked in for 160 hours at this very low, cheap pay rate. They can log in their 40 hours or 80 hours here, log in your 40 hours somewhere else, and that creates more opportunities for labor within the marketplace. So for me, it was a key point that said that shows that when you're saying consumption to production, you've actually thought through not only the fact that you want to have a productive economy, but that you understand what work design means. And so I think that was a clear point. I think the other thing that I also wanted to speak to was that when you look at our economy and the challenges that we have, a clear path in my mind to economic prosperity for the majority, which is what we need, is free enterprise. And so when I read that economic pact, one of the things that I found fascinating and interesting for me was the fact the repeated use of the word incentives. It showed somebody who was willing, and again, you talked about PPP and all those kind of things. It showed somebody who clearly understands that we need to roll back the state's involvement and participation in to enable private enterprise. And what private enterprise is looking for are the things that they were calling out: security, rule of law, because you need strong legal foundations for people to bring their capital into the economy and invest. You need to create incentives to enable people know that, yes, I will come here. The economic policies will make sense. They will be stable. And so I can invest my capital, be certain of a certain level of stability, and be sure of returns. And so when you have an economic pact that is talking about putting that in place, it then signals to markets we're ready for business. Now we're going to step away from all those things. And so I compare it to other manifestos that I've seen that are talking about the national infrastructure policy, that are talking about, again, big government, heavy state involvement. We're now choosing between what should work for us. We are a 200 million population economy. No government can. I ask anybody to go check. Any country above 100 million people, go and check the kind of economic policies they're driving. No government can attempt to be as heavily involved and enable economic prosperity for the majority. No, you're going to only bring poverty because you're going to suffocate enterprise, and you need them to create the jobs, to create the economic activity, and to ensure that more people start working, you're productive, you're generating taxes. And someone mentioned, one of the things I've always thought about is that you need to also change how we tax, because there's too much focus on corporate income tax. There needs to be federal government also looking into private income tax. But you only enable that to happen when people have meaningful jobs, are gainfully employed. Again, going back to why hourly wage structure would raise the level of income, would enable people to be more productive, and would ensure that you have more people to tax, so that you can fund the social programs that government needs to focus on. I think the final point is two things. One, so for me, that will address some of the concerns around where we get the money from, how we raise that. You would naturally do that by one, reducing cost of governance, rolling back government activity, and making sure that, yes, the private enterprise can drive things. I think the last point, and I think Ifeimika raised it, and I agree with her entirely. I think the point I was looking at it from when we have this discussion, I know Kalu has said, look, right or wrong, it's going to be a natural debate, the one around, public servants and their kids schooling in Nigeria or not. I agree that it's not right or wrong. But for me, the challenge I see is limiting your talent pool. We all know that the economic policies that we've seen over the last 7 years have forced a lot of people to seek pastures elsewhere. A lot of great talent have left the country. Now, if you're looking to build your country, you want to attract talent from wherever they may be. Now, if people are going to be able to join you, and they must join you at your pay scale in Nigeria, I'm not saying go and hire people from abroad and then start paying them based on their pay structure abroad. No, but if they can afford to have their children in foreign schools, we cannot, limit our talent pool by saying, no, we insist that those children must now come to Nigeria and be schooling. So I think we need to have that flexibility and that balance to ensure that we don't limit ourselves. We're still able to attract the best talent to help drive this country and find the right solutions for us to move forward. So a lot of interesting discussions, but I think this pact shows a clear understanding of the economic issues we have, shows a clear understanding that we need to roll back the states and its undue influence and participation in the economic activity, which we've seen a lot of because of the ideology of the leaders of today. We need to roll that back. And so this pact is going in that direction, a step forward. There's a lot more work to do. There's a lot to think about, but great step in the forward.
I agree with you wholesale and all that, even the other points. I think, like you said, take China. They fought their war with Japan. They won. Then the communists and the capitalists fought their civil war. The communists won. The capitalists ran to Taiwan. The communists under Mao then started this whole big government, not even big government, started this only government approach to development. Everything. Everybody went back to become a peasant. They tried to do food. They had famines. People were dying in Japan. In Nigeria was building first stack and building highways. The Chinese were dying of famines. They couldn't feed themselves. There's a guy in Nigeria, Chris Wood. He is the chairman of this China Nigerian Trade Commission. So he was saying in Lagos that the Chinese sent people to Nigeria to study overhead bridges. They couldn't go to Europe back then because they were communists. So they came to Africa to look at the overhead bridges that the Germans had built in Lagos to learn how to build bridges. There was only one bridge over the river, whatever, in China in 1970s. They came here and studied Nigeria, the Chinese. Now look at it. The president came and says it doesn't matter if the cat is white or black. Let it catch mice. They changed from a communist top-down system to a bottom rural export-driven economy where they had the investors come to the ports, come to the coastline, build Western cities there, and they simply copied them. They moved from this consumption of, hey, the state will produce, then you consume, everybody will be paid, we're all the same. They moved to entrepreneurship, to capitalism. They created jobs. They fixed the rural areas, focused on export. Currency went up. They eradicated extreme poverty for 800 million Chinese. It has never been done in the history of Earth. 800 million people moved away from poverty because they changed the economic model from this everybody is going to do well to capitalism. That's what they did. Nigeria is under this plan I'm seeing. They are trying to, I think, copy that to come back home, pay people well, invest in rural areas. We're here fiber optics. We're here. We're going to do those rural communities so that you start the development from the rural communities. The philanthropic boards go back to rural areas. You start from there. You build out, but on the coast, the Lagos, the Calabars that are on the coast, you give them full autonomy to attract foreign capital and to grow. The economy can't grow at the same pace. Lagos cannot grow the same speed as Bauchi State. It's not possible. You can't ask everyone to wait. So before you do GSM in Lagos, you must do GSM in the southeast, southwest, 6 geopolitical zones. That's where we are pulled down the way we are. You want to build railway, you build a railway from Warri to where is it called? Ajaokuta. What's there? That railway was built to take iron ore, not human beings. The railway is Lagos to Ibadan. The railway is Lagos to Calabar, not even Abuja to Kaduna. But we mismanage resources because we want to do quote unquote federal capital character. We have to come back home and look at economics and make everybody rich. Mr. Vasse, what's on your mind, sir? Let's get a warm-up Vasse. You've got the floor, sir. Phoenix, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I want to talk about your book more, The Cattle Rearer Chronicles, an outside-in look at the Buhari presidency. Very. And one more side, you've got the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very
Okay, thanks. I just want to cover two things quickly. With respect to even the link I sent to you, Uncle Kalu, as regards reduction of what do you call it? Sorry, plug-in leakages and all that jazz that Obi frequently talks about. I think one part that I think people miss out on, because when people talk about government spending is less than 10% of the GDP. So what can you really do when you reduce when you cut off? What a lot of people miss out on is how cutting cost of governance also comes with bureaucratic reforms. So there is no way that you want to spend more efficiently, that your bureaucracy, which is your civil service and public service, doesn't improve in efficiency. So it's like they're like Siamese twins. So people miss out on that, on just the money part that is being saved, and sorry, miss out on the money that can be generated from better running bureaucracy. And I think Obi has even opined on this when he talked about his trip to Morocco and how the ports there, the turnaround time is one of the fastest in Africa, if not the fastest in Africa, and how sort of like people talking about increase in revenue, how with better turnaround times at our ports, you can actually even double or triple the revenues that come to the ports. So I just wanted to highlight that part, that cutting cost of revenue is not all about the money that you are saving. It's also about improving the efficiency of a bureaucracy. Who are the regulators? And obviously, when you regulate a lot more better jobs than that was done in the past, you have a more robust private sector. You have more people that are participating. You have less red tape. So you have a lot more economic activity. So it transcends just saving cost of governance, because that cost of governance that is being adhered to also leads to improvement in your efficiency of your regulators, which also has a ripple effect on your private sector. So you are sort of like catalyzing economic activity when it comes to governance. That is just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right, super. Thank you so much. Hey guys, we're almost spent about 3 hours or so. We're going to start to wind it down. So in about 30 minutes, I think we'll call the spaces done. We've been speaking about with lots of folks that have just made very, very brilliant submissions about the economic pact of the Peter Obi of the Labour Party candidate, how he wants to approach the issue with Nigeria, creating jobs and all that. So we're just talking, lots of issues are there, the minimum wage, the fiber optics, schools, kids not schooling abroad, infrastructure and all that. And we're at the stage where everyone just makes his comments in there and we're loving it. So about 30 minutes, we'll wind it down. Some guys have requested, so I won't add any more requests. Just the folks that have requested now, I will add. So just, if you can't, don't request anymore. Just going to be just the folks that are here that I see now that I'll add on the team. So we've got Mill. I'm just going to walk you on Millie Shield. How are you doing, sir? The best.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. I've been here for about 2 hours listening to every contribution, and I so much appreciate everybody making their contribution to the improvement and growth of Nigeria. Mr. Kalu, I really, really appreciate your tweets about finance and all that. especially the way you break it down for bricklayer like me to understand. I really, really appreciate that. Now, I have some questions for you, Mr. Kalu, that has been disturbing my mind. Is Nigeria poor?
No.
That is my first question.
No.
Okay. Now, the second question is, whoever becomes the president, what are the impacts he can tout the governors following suit with his vision and mission?
A lot. He can do a lot. Simply, listen, without even passing any policy in February, if you elect the right president in February, without even him being in office, the exchange rate will be affected. The rate of foreign investment will go up, and even corruption will start to tilter down just in February before June. So it's a lot. This is people without him being in office. Why? Because in economics and finance, we track consumer expectation and consumer confidence. If expectation is positive, the economy tends to become positive. When Trump was elected, Obama was still the president, elected as Obama was still the president before Trump even took over. So I can give you, yeah, but the answer is it can do a lot, a whole lot. He gets, go ahead, sir.
Okay, now to my contribution after these two questions. I want to say, to make Nigeria get to next level, there are a lot of low-hanging fruits that Nigeria can pluck.
You got it very quick. We're going to do.
Yeah, to activate one of the candidates' mission to change us from consumption to production. Look at the NYSC, the youth service. These students that are going for a year youth service, what are they bringing back into the economy? It costs Nigeria not less than 100 billion naira every year. What are these students bringing back into the economy? I would suggest that a national agricultural revolution program is put in place whereby these students will serve in mega farms to be established in each state so that we will be producing especially food items that we consume locally, and we can export the rest to gain foreign exchange. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you making that contribution. Let's get Spotlight in here. Spotlight, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Spotlight going once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so just a quick contribution regarding the hourly pay. I just want to say that it's a good idea for me because I've noticed in my own line of work, because I work with consultants a lot, that when you bring in experts into the country to do a work for you, and of course you pay them hourly and they're not cheap, you find that from the employer's side or from the service enjoyer's side, you already have an idea of what you want them to deliver for you. So there are already outcomes that you already put together. So you don't have a lot of inefficiencies in the system. They focus on what they need to do and they get them done within the time and on target. So it will help us to plan the workforce in Nigeria more effectively, and everybody will have that they'll have that that zeal to upskill, and you produce more people that are able to contribute to the country as a whole. So for me, I think it's really nice. And the fact that when you're able to do that, you increase efficiency all round. It's really something that will help Nigeria a lot, because if you're looking at the workplaces at this time, you see that some people, even like maybe your bosses, they don't do the work until maybe 5 o'clock in the evening, and then they just keep you there because you are paid monthly. Nobody begins to calculate the cost of wastages. And that's why you have everybody on the road at the same time, spending lots of man hours, spending lots of people's lifespans, shortening them in traffic. So when you have this kind of thing, everybody begins to find ways that they can actually reduce waste in the system, reduce red money that we pay for nothing. Workplaces will begin to know what is vital for their success and take away the things that are not necessary. And of course, as from the employees' side as well, you find out what value you add to the organization. You, even in your own job, you find out, you ask yourself, am I really adding value? And then you have that zeal to look, upskill so that you can do better and earn more. So I think it's a win-win for both people if we're able to do it effectively. And I think it's a good thing that Labour Party is trying to do.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Let's get Mr. Osai, Osim. Go for it. You got the floor. Mr. Osim, Osim, that's Dr. Osim.
Yes,
Go.
yes, thank you very much, Mr. Kalu. Like many others have, I'm a great fan of your tweets. I'm not an economist, I'm a medical doctor, but which for now is turning into my hobby. Preferably, I'm a techpreneur and solutions engineer. I want to speak on two issues. I've really had a micro MBA class here from listening to brilliant Nigerians speak. But my area of interest is on the subsidy. Again, I'm not a politician. I don't vote. I don't know.
Vote. Why don't you vote?
Okay, based on my religious convictions, I don't vote for elections.
Okay.
But I am very interested in this very enterprising and intelligent conversation. Now, in 2016, I spoke to the Nigerian government under the then Minister for State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachiku. I did a presentation to all the departments, NNPC, PPPRA, PFMB, and DPR on this subsidy management system. Then they were using a software called Aquila. I'm a techpreneur. I build enterprise software solutions. And I told them what was wrong with the subsidy system. Many people get the impression that subsidy is wonderful. The Scandinavian country, Norway, Sweden, and the rest, they live their whole life on subsidy. They don't pay school fees. There's no transport allowance. Norway has the biggest, what is it called? This fund. Carlo, you should know that. What is it called? This
The Norwegian Wealth Fund. That'll do for us.
They have something even bigger, as small as the country is. The sovereign wealth fund, that's the word. The sovereign wealth fund is even bigger than that of Saudi Arabia with all its oil fields. So where am I coming from? Subsidy is a critical component to human development because your economic development is also critically human capital development. Now, I did a presentation and I was in Abuja for almost 3 weeks because
let me have you take it home. I want to cycle a lot of folks in, if you don't mind. Just let's have you take it home, right?
All right. So what I'm trying to say is, one, that subsidy is very necessary, but the problem with the subsidy regime in Nigeria is that it's not data driven. You need to have a data driven subsidy system to plug the subsidy hole. Now, you can't have citizens in an oil producing country paying the whole gamut of expenses to purchase energy. Energy is a vital part of our economy. You can see they're even talking about subsidizing energy for them. So the challenge we're having right now is managing the subsidy regime. And why that is happening is because it is not data driven. I worked on a solution for them, and they didn't take it at that time. I even went as far as working with a team that had to put up what is it called, for the Senate. They had to put up a policy document for the Senate to adopt and turn it into law or whatever, but definitely it didn't work. Now, on the other aspect of the NYSC, somebody spoke about NYSC going to farms. I really do not think we get this thing wrong about agriculture. Agriculture in the 21st industry, 4.0 agriculture, is not human capital driven. It's tech driven. It's technology driven. It's powered by innovation and a lot of devices, hardware like the tractors and the rest of it. You're not going to have people digging holes if you want to do consumption to production. So that idea of taking coppers to the farm is not really.
Doc, I got to move along if you don't mind.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Let's get the jubilant developer in here. Thank you, Doc. Jubilant developer, you've got the floor, sir. All right, let's get Duke O. I've got Duke O. Duke of Obudu. Duke Obudu has Duke.
Okay. Hello, Kalu.
Yes, please speak up, sir. Your volume's kind of low.
Okay. You can hear me now. Thank you for letting me introduce your space. I've been listening for quite some time now. I do listen to your space often. So I've
Duke, your
learned a
audio
lot.
is very low. I'm so sorry. If you can make your audio better, I'll take you off, sir. Can you speak up? It's breaking a bit, your audio.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm so sorry about that. Practical economist, let me have you in here. Duke, I'm so sorry. Your audio is bad. If you can come back in, I'll let you in, but your audio is very, very low. Practical economist, you've got the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Carl, can I speak out the next speaker? I'm really not going to get gas here. Can I speak out the next
Super.
speaker, please?
That's
It's
fine.
really noisy.
So I got Agulana IA.
Hi, Kano.
If I can come in, please.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you so much for having me. This has been a great experience for me. I just my contribution is more of a question for you. A few weeks back, P2B was in Michigan. I asked him a question about how he was going to uh, if the Labour Party don't win the Senate and House of Reps, how he was going to, handle all these policies that he keeps talking about. What he told me was, he had that problem when he was governor in Anambra State. He didn't really go into much details on how he was going to handle that. I was hoping that you could, touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind. Thank you.
I mean, look at it this way, right? If you have a good policy, the people will force that change to happen. If you have a good policy, the FOI bill, the Freedom of Information Bill, Goodluck was the president, but the states did not want it. The House did not want it. The Senate did not want it because it was going to expose a lot happening in the economy. So he went to the organized private sector. He went to the social media. He went to the folks, and they pushed that bill to the consciousness of Nigerians. If Peter Obi brings out a policy that he believes the people would want, and he's able to communicate that policy to the people, it will pass. The Senate Obamacare, who wanted Obamacare? Even the Democrats did not want Obamacare. Obama had to go in the various states, market that bill, get
Right.
guys twist their arms to pass that bill. Remember, it was killed in the Senate. And even elected a
Yep.
senator to kill the bill. But it passed. Pelosi, they literally forced people to vote for that bill. I'm not saying, listen, if you want to get into the kitchen, you've got to be ready to sweat. So he has got to really test the waters. His first few bills have got to be people-centered bills. Get the people involved. When the House and the Senate see that the people are listening to him and that he is getting bills that are for the people, they will pass them. Politicians want to be called politicians. So you don't go and beg them. You put it on them. You go also to the private media and you sell your bill. Let me see the person that will come and say he doesn't want to vote for a salary increase. Then let him go back to his constituency and say, "Oh, I voted against salary increase." That's just my take on how you do it. You've got to be smart about how you communicate the bill, sell it to the people, and the people will force those folks in Abuja to pass it.
Right. Okay. No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I
Yep.
really appreciate your time.
Right. Let's get Itiro. Let's get Itiro. Itiro, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
How are you doing today? Go ahead.
I'm all right. Thank you. Thank you, Kalu, for the space. I just want to add quickly that hourly rate is good, but I would prefer that we focus on production. How we can, first of all, ensure that we have a production-driven society. For instance, look at Nigeria, for instance. Minimum wage is 30,000. And that salary sometimes is being owed for months. So we need to have production first. I will take you back to what you said about China. I followed the Nigeria development a lot. I remember in Aba, as we were growing up, the major thing was that Aba product was original and China was fake. But what we have today is the opposite. So how do we bring back that market? I think that's what I was expecting more from? I know it's there, but I'm not seeing how that's I'm not seeing us talk about that more. Hourly rate is good, but how much is it that people are really going to be earning from the hourly rate if we do not have production? We need to go production. I was in a meeting last week, and I was talking about patent, because it's something I'm really passionate about, intellectual properties. And we have a lot of trademarks, but we don't have patents. That tells us that we are not a productive society. We don't have innovations. We don't have new things coming in. We don't have inventive activities happening from time to time. So it's difficult to start saying you want to have hourly rates. We cannot really engage. How do we get people back? Aba, for instance, is very dirty because it's a productive society, supposed to be for inventive activity. So how do we begin to bring back those hubs and all that? So maybe, all right, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, I think that the hourly wage is designed to employ more people. Look at it this way, right? So if you are paying one guy to 8 to 9, and he's just sitting there, then you are using him when you have production, or he's just sitting by. If it's per hour, right, you can employ more people because you need the work to be done faster. So you can employ two people to do the same job that you would have paid one guy at 30K. That's number one. Number two, the workers can work in more places. IT workers. They're looking for IT workers, but the IT workers are Japan. So an IT worker in Nigeria today is able to work for two people. That's higher productivity. So it's one person, two jobs, more incomes, two tax revenue streams. That's higher production. Number three, maybe someone is at home, can't work for 8 hours, doesn't want to go to Lekki to work, but can work for 4 hours. You've got kids in school, so you drop your kids in school, you go work for 3 hours, you come back home. You are also employed. You are part-time. You want to work only in the summer, you want to work only in the rainy season, it's your call. So it brings in that flexibility that allows the employer and the employee to renegotiate how they want to be paid. So it wouldn't work by just the work being done. It's not going to reduce the workforce. Your comments on productivity are correct, but there can be separate stuff. We can have mutually agreeable. We can say we want to increase
That's true.
productivity and we want to do hourly work. Aba is dirty because they don't. The state is what's the word now? It's ineffective. They got there's
I think
no.
I think I want to comment there now. I think we need to devolve power. I know everybody talks about it a lot. If you don't devolve power, states will not be productive. That's just it.
Whose job is it to clear trash on the streets of
No, no. When I mean, for instance, policies, federal policies, the states
Yes,
more
but
than you talk
I want to,
about. There's
but who's
somebody says
who's
something is the state of is the duty of the state. I would answer that. But somebody
I
says
hear you.
something about I think the thought line just left me now. Somebody was saying something about driving productivity. Like, okay, you were the one that mentioned it, that the federal states, you want to build technology here and you want to build it in 6 geological zone. You'd have a state that is on coastal line and you want to reproduce that same coastal line in a state that has nothing, or you're trying to
Yeah,
get oil in a state that has nothing. I
yeah,
think this of on
yes,
productivity
yes,
in
but
Nigeria.
no,
So until we devolve, okay, go ahead, Carl.
I get you, but that's the base of economic development. What I'm trying to say is this: on a street in Aba, is dirty. Whose job is it to pick up the
No,
trash?
that's the state. But
The
the
state
reason why you have
or the local
that
government.
the
Who,
local
who
government, the
so
local
what?
government of that
So
state,
why can't they
basically.
do? Why can't Aba do it? Why?
Well, like I said, Kalu, maybe you should go back to my thoughts line so that the space is almost closing. Maybe we'll go back to my thoughts line so that we don't get to deviate too fast, too far rather. What I'm trying to say is, I used Aba and China as an example. I said Aba made, and I know very well our shoes were original. China was fake at that time, but the opposite is the case now. Why
First,
do we
okay.
have that? Why do we have that? It's the federal policy that drove us to basically a consuming society. I would say that anywhere, anytime. It's a federal system we are trying to run. You can't unify, you can't run a single unit in Nigeria as a single unit. It would work. It has never worked, and it would never work. So that's what actually killed productivity. You know, we talk about granite pyramid, all those things, but I know of ABBA very well because my grandmother used to sell a lot. So when you bring in China, then you bring in China, people won't want to buy China. Everybody would rather go for ABBA. Here in Nigeria, we're not even talking about Japanese, those were high-tech things, so to say, but ABBA could compete with some of those products so well. So the question that we should be asking, or rather, what we should be thinking, or what I think the drivers of Obi campaign, I just want to put it on Obi really. I just think that we should go back to what used to be. I don't know why we don't have inventive activities. We don't look at that. We are concerned oil is fine. Even the oil, we not even do it here. We take it out, then bring it for us to buy. You know, so we need to go back to being a producing society. A company that pays 30,000 cannot be paying 3 people to come and do that same job. The reason why they are paying that is because there is no job. They're not even doing anything. They don't know what to sell. They just want to be there so that if they get government contracts, we're back to it again. The reason why we have challenges, so that if they have government contracts, they can quickly jump into it. That's why most of them have shops. There's really activities going on. Most of these shops will not be existing. I think those are the things we should focus on.
Yeah, I got you. I think I got your point clear at the end of why did we go from a being manufacturing center to just being an important center. I think it's a good point you make. A good point. I hear you. Practical economists, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Good evening, Carlo. Good evening, everyone in the house. Good evening, Toru. I can really feel your frustration. But the thing there is that this is Nigeria. We don't have a lot of incentive for a lot of things, and that is the reason why you're not seeing a lot of inventive stuff. And that is around where I'm even going to build my whole speech tonight. Focusing more on the production part, how to move to production. So whoever is here who has access to Peter Obi or who's working on Peter Obi economic policy document, I think you need to take some note on this. Or whoever's working on Tinubu article, whichever, because one thing is sure, 2023 by February we must have a president next year by May. So that's for sure. So I think the best way now on how we can get out of this now, how we can move productivity, we need to move productivity away from government functionary to the private sector. For the longest of time, we've had this illusion whereby government functionary, ministry, and MDA brings out the political part, and they're the one pursuing it. That approach is linear in approach, because why? The whole policy centers around those civil servants or those people who are in those ministry who are pushing the policy. But when you make the policy expansive in a way that people can contribute their own quota and you can accommodate it and you move forward with it. So the best way right now for Nigeria is that we have to run an innovative driven economy. And I'm going to give you a timeline, a fact of countries who have done this. If you look at US, for example, now, in the 18th century, when they were running kind of like the feudal system, when it was revolving all around the Carnegie, Rockefeller, and JP Morgan, the growth were linear there. But they were making money, but the growth were linear. But when it came to the 1929, the Henry Ford era, where we have about venture capital financing, we saw tremendous growth in the American era that gave birth to the era that gave birth to what we call the baby boomer generation. We had the boomer generation that gave birth to the baby boomer generation. Now, what did those guys do that was different from the era of the Rockefeller and the Carnegie era? Simple. They decided to run an innovative driven economy whereby they democratize access to finance. So what they mean that an average Joe, on an average Bill Clinton, on an average Wright in America, who identified an opportunity and builds a business model around that opportunity, has an institution whereby you can send that proposal to, and they're going to appraise it, and they're going to invest based on the workability of that idea and bring about resources. And we've seen the growth in that. We've seen the like of Microsoft, we've seen the like of Apple, we've seen Facebook, we've seen Google. All these guys benefited away from an innovative driven economy through the venture capital financing. Now, we may say that is far. Let's come back here. Let's look at 2000 here. Now, let's look at China as a country. People always reference China. People are calling him Chinese, will call something. But there's something the mind is people are not seeing there, which is China. Look at the growth in China and Southeast Asia over the last 20 years, for example. Now, in 2000, China had a GDP of less than $2.2 trillion. As of today, now, China has a GDP of what? $18.6 trillion. What did China do differently that accelerated that growth? It is that same thing, that innovative driven economy. Because what you have done there is that you have given your people an incentive to what? To think, an incentive to innovate. Because you know why? When I innovate, there's somebody that can take this tool that will help me convert this to a business AI, to a business enterprise that can give me commercial rewards for my intellectual process. I don't get where I'm coming from. But in Nigeria, yeah, what we see is that when people come out with innovative solutions, they're like, now wow, if you say look at idea abroad now, shit, if I don't pick you up. Hey, if you say one senator or one government can see you. And ideally, in an innovative country, that should not be the process, that should not be the way. Once you identify an opportunity and you build a model around it that is compatible and that can scale, you have an institution whereby you can send a proposal to, and they're not asking you for a collateral. What they're asking for is the value you bring, which is what? Your product and the MVP you had. Okay, if I invest a amount of dollars in this business, we can get a amount of dollars. And the reason why we are losing so much today is that because we are not doing this. So the only financial model we have is the commercial bank. And the commercial bank don't finance. The commercial bank does debt financing, which requires you to have a collateral and many, many procedures. Unlike the equity financing, which is that of the VC. For example, now if you look at our solid mineral, for example, now there's a I just found out last week about the mineral called Maker Stone. Kalu, when I found out about this Maker Stone, like I was going so crazy. I was so angry. I was so mad. Like this was something because I grew up in Delta State, and Delta State have a lot of these rocks there. We had better glass. They were refining glasses there. So we have a lot of these stones. But this was the stone actually at our phone screens, our television screens are being made of. But we don't even know. So the Chinese now are in Nasarawa State mining that stone and exporting it to their country. Whereby ideally, we should be the one producing the glasses, the glass frame for different phones and exporting it. So we can have a contact frame where we say, okay, Samsung, for example, your phone is 6 inches diameter. Okay, we're going to produce this screen glasses for you, and we export, add more value. So in other words, we want to improve our productivity. We have an innovative driven economy. And the good thing there is that Nigeria has a large demographic of people population who are educated. But these guys do not have the reason or the economic the economic incentive to apply
practical. If I'm hearing you right, you're just basically telling us that there are lots of ways that we can grow wealth in this economy apart from this.
Lots of way we can achieve growth that China achieved in 20 years.
Yeah, we need someone that's forward thinking, innovative, that can listen. We don't want someone that'll come and say he wants to grow wealth by.
We don't need someone. We need to build institutions that derive their financial dividends from innovation, not someone. Because someone will always come and go, but institution will always outlive somebody. Let me get where I'm coming from. So the reason why you have Silicon Valley, for example, is because they have built the venture capital institution significantly, so that it outlives every business CEO or every administration. Because the commodity there is you need an innovation or you need a smart entrepreneur to identify an opportunity in a sector, so you can convert, you can invest your money to get more dividends. So everybody understand that. So you have capital that's always looking for what is the next big idea, what is the next big idea to invest. So let's duplicate that same thing back in Nigeria. And in the next 15 to 20 years, we'll be surprised on the amount of growth we have in this country. I mean, it is not rocket science. It has been done and it is working. Look at Singapore, look at Malaysia, look at Vietnam.
I do appreciate. I mean, you've made some very, very great comments, guys. We're just going to wind down. We're going to end by the hour, but we're still here. So I'm going to make sure the guys that are here have to get a chance to speak. MJ Stark, you've got the floor. Practical, thank you so much. MJ Stark, you've got the floor.
Hello, good evening, Kalu, and good evening, everyone. It's been a very lovely space, and I'll just quickly make my submission. Yeah, so basically what I would like to say, it's a point that I think we haven't really stressed regarding the hourly payment introduced in P2B's draft manifesto. Now, basically, if you look at other countries, you would find out that no functioning economy of the great countries, I mean, the economically do good countries, right? When you look at their economy, you find out that 18-hour economy. Now, this hourly pay system can also help Nigeria to move in that direction, where you have people working during the day and also other people working the night shift, it keeps the economy bubbling 24 hours a day. Now, this means people are making more money and paying more tax. I mean, that is what I love most about that idea. The fact that we can double down on the growth of our economy and also get twice as much in tax revenues. So that is basically that. And more so, when he mentioned about cutting the cost of governance and making sure that public servants are not getting, ridiculously higher pay than our lecturers or, for example, professors who have spent 35 years or the better part of their lives, inculcating knowledge, and they end up getting peanuts. Meanwhile, people who just got into politics the other day are making much more than they are doing. So that is the best parts of all of that.
All right, good. Thank you, MJ. I appreciate that. Let's get. Thank you so much, sir. Let's get Dr. Chidi Ugu. Hey, Dr. Chidi, you've got the floor. Just kindly unmute, and then you can speak. Let's get Dati. I've got Dati, Pitobi, Vuvuzela, or more Guru E. Go ahead, sir. Omogoro E, you've got the floor. Go ahead. All right, let's get Jeffrey Godi.
Okay, hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. Kalu, thank you for this opportunity. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's bad.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me now?
There's background.
Now.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just go for it. I think I'll start with a disclaimer. I have critiqued all the candidates, all the policies that they've released. Good things in all of them. Some things are also mind-boggling in all of them. Just going to start off with, so since we're talking about Peter Obi's,
about a minute.
Yeah, it's fine. We're talking about Peter Obi's one. I'm just going to consult on that. One, there's so much hue and cry about this minimum wage. It doesn't fix the problems that we're looking at, because the people you're going to be addressing are the guys, the low-skilled labor borrowers. So you're talking about your cleaners who's earning 30,000 naira today, but at the end of the day works 2 hours in the morning and is going to get maybe about 7,500 naira for the month. It doesn't really affect, because today we do have a high unemployment rate. That cleaner that has 2 hours, he or she is not just going to get a job automatically. Secondly, it doesn't also, what I was hoping is what government fixes in the 21st century. We're looking at government that is laissez-faire really in the market space, but addresses things that private sector would not address. Things are not profitable. So the hard to reach kids, healthcare, people that had to reach in terms of healthcare, education, also agriculture. There's so much talk about agriculture today, and I wonder if people really know the stats. Nigeria has one of the poorest in terms of nutrients in the land. So if you have to do it, government has to put a lot in terms of fertilizers.
Hello, what stat are you quoting for us?
Go and check it in terms of, and you can do a Google search in terms of nitrogen, in terms of phosphate, in terms of the third one. We have the lowest. Go and check it. And we, in terms of fertilizer, we spend less than 20 kg per hectare. Other countries, trust me, I'm not putting stats off, because I am an investor in that space, and I'm not just an investor. I'm a seasoned investor in the agri space. I know what I'm saying. We use 20 kg per hectare in fertilizer. The other countries that we speak about in terms of South Africa, in terms of 200 kg per hectare. Go and check the stats out.
Your audio has dropped off.
South Africa, China. And I wonder if people understood what happened there. Two things make China what it is today. Number one, you close these borders.
Okay, let's get sorry about Kulu. Your audio dropped off. Let me get Dr. Chidi Ugu, please. Dr. Chidi, we've got about 5 guys, and then we'll shut it down. I'm just going to get the 5 guys that are requested to speak. Dr. Chidi, please unmute and speak. Kulu, your audio drops. I'm sorry about that. Dr. Chidi, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, can you?
Yes, I can.
Okay, sorry, I just want to make a quick one about in response to the question you asked about why the governor won't clear the trash.
We're talking about the Peter Obi Economic Pact. That's really not. That was just a question.
Yes, but it's connected to the devolution aspect of it. I don't know whether if it's out of order, I can drop, and then perhaps later I can find a time to make my comment.
You've got the floor for a minute, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so quickly, just what I want to say is to make the point that it is the logic of this that comes with a centralized system like Nigeria, where governors go to Abuja to collect money, local government chairmen go to Abuja to collect money. Given that their resources do not come from the people, from the ingenuity of the citizens, from the productivity of the citizens, they lack respect and regard for the citizens. And this trickles down to even collecting trash, even cleaning up the street, even the kind of attention that education receives, and everything that has to do with organizing society for people to thrive. So that's the logic that connects with why the governor won't clear. Once you rebuild the system that gives the center of attention, center of gravity of the polity to the people, that the governor knows he derives his authority from, he'll begin to clean the trash and to give people the respect they deserve. That's just the point I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
I think it's a good point to say that there's no connection between the voter, people, and public funds. Good point. Good point. I take it, but I still insist that it takes nothing to clear the street. But I get your point. I think you make a good one there. JT Godi.
Okay, hi, Kalu. Thank you for this opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes, but a bit low, but please speak up and I can hear you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so my contribution is with respect to what next after Peter Obi's 8 years. And my concern has always been that you can get a very good president, he will do all his best. And then after 8 years,
the guy hasn't even gotten yet, bro. Aren't you going a bit further? He has to get in first. Yeah, we're talking of 8 years.
Well, a simple example is after Obasanjo, there were a couple of things he had put in place. Jonathan came in, and then Buhari came in, and you could see where the economy has gone.
Yeah, but I want us to sort of focus. We're talking about the economic pact. I don't want us to really talk exoterics. 8 years. Let's talk about him. Even what has he written? What do you feel about the pact he has written? To talk about 8 years after is a bit esoteric, in my view.
Yeah, I was, coming down to something. I think that at the end of the day, what I would really like will be, someone touched on it initially, but I just want to push on further, a national development plan that I feel will strengthen institutions that outlive precedent, so that the development that a president has achieved will not be reversed by the policy or behaviors of another president, because it will spoil everything. And another thing I wanted to ask you, you are an economist, and I wanted to ask this. Do you think that this issue of fuel subsidy, the huge money spent on fuel subsidy, can a government decide to give tax break on income tax to remove fuel subsidy, in terms of how much is generated from income tax and how much is spent on fuel subsidy? Can the government do that?
So I don't understand. You're going to give, so i.e., I don't pay tax and you use the money to fund subsidies. Is that what you're asking? I'm not really sure I understand that question.
Yes. So you don't take tax from from people who are taxed and then take
Nigerians,
out and
Nigerians
then
don't
remove
Nigerians don't
subsidy
pay,
completely.
Nigerians don't pay tax.
So
Nigeria's tax to GDP is the lowest in the entire world. That's people in
that's why
Afghanistan.
personally I pay tax. And
Yes, that's
so
you. But Nigerians don't pay tax. Our tax to GDP is abysmal. We don't pay. Only payee folks pay tax. If you are paid by, if in a formal employment where you are paying, you pay taxes. Lots of Nigerians pay informal taxes, dues. If you're in Lagos, you are paying this tout or that agency, but that's not a real tax. Income tax, very, very low. Very, very
very
low.
low.
So,
Because
yeah.
I was thinking that can be like an incentive to say, take this, don't pay tax, we will remove fuel subsidy.
I
If
think
that's possible anyway.
subsidy is just filled with corruption. If you remove the corruption, you drop it by half. This is not my words. I mean, the customs, the DG of customs has said the NNPC figures on if PMS subsidy is wrong. This is the owner of the borders, the guy that does the borders, is saying NNPC is over inflating subsidy figures. So let's say he's right. You take out the subsidy fraud, it falls. Subsidy should not be removed. I'm not in support of removing subsidy on petroleum. I'm in support of paying the subsidy to local refiners. I don't want to pay imported subsidy. So if you have a local refiner, subsidize it, but pay the subsidy at the pumps in Nigeria. So you basically say you have an NIN phone, you have a BVN phone. If you want to take subsidy, go and link your NIN and your BVN to your car registration. Then you have e-Naira. So government can pay you e-Naira 5,000 a month based on your BVN and your NIN to attach to your car. So that car can buy 5,000 naira fuel subsidized every month. You go to a fuel station, you use e-Naira, you pay. That way you remove the exports because no one can use that same procedure in Niger Republic or Cameroon. So we only pay for subsidy at the pumps, not at the port. JT, we're gonna run because we've got about one more person that we'll just call this up. I got one more person. Let me just call Gabe. You've got the floor. Sammy, Gabe too. You've got the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, Carlos, can you hear me very well?
I
I've
cannot
asked my
hear you very well. You've got background noise and your audio is so you've
yeah,
got.
I'm stepping out. I'm stepping out. I came for my daughter's game. I was watching my daughter. All right. Is it better now?
Getting better. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone that has spoken so far. I want to just touch a little bit on, the hourly pay policy that Peter B is bringing on board. Absolutely, if Nigerians will understand this very process or policy, they will appreciate it. I'm in the United States of America. I've seen, how that works, and I would just say that they would have to blend it with, the salary. Not everybody will be on hourly pay for sure, but they will have to blend it and then put in a lot of institutions to check it. Now, one thing that is very important is ethical values in the place of work. That needs to be instilled. So there has to be a lot of labor laws and all of that that will be able to control that, and then be able to preach ethics in the workplace. Be able to talk about I worked in Nigeria. I worked in the banking sector for about 5 years. I've seen where somebody, because you are a higher officer, you know, you treat the contract workers like they are nobody. I see them, molest people in the office because they are, you know, so quote unquote full-time employees, and then these, contract workers, you treat them, use them to make teas, and even, molest the girls, work abuse in the office. So ethics needs to be preached a lot, and that has to be enforced, and then this will work. So if it's going to blend it salary, not everybody would definitely be on, hourly pay and all of that. If we understand that, it's going to help us a lot. It's going to drive the economy. It's going to drive productivity. It's going to drive a lot of, improvement. Somebody said that what we waste a lot is time. We abuse time a lot in Nigeria. There's always this saying that government work is not anybody's work. It's not your father's work. That's been said a lot. That's that attitude that is being that is holding back our ministries. If you go to the ministries today, you see people peeling maize, melon, and doing all chit chatting and why they're supposed to work. I was recently in Nigeria, where I went to renew my passport. This guy that was capturing me was there busy having video calls. He was chatting, doing video calls with his friends, and he left me there looking. And I mean, this is precious time that is being wasted, but he was using it on his own personal thing. I was so pissed off, but I couldn't do anything, because that's Nigeria for you. So we need, a lot of reorientation to be able to get the economy going and then get our senses back. Somebody talked about, picking trash and all of that, right? If the people have the right sense and know that, hey, I don't have to litter the ground to make Aba as dirty as it is, I know it is the responsibility of the local government to, make sure that they serve and get those cities clean, right? But we need a change of attitude as well. We need a change. I mean, we need to know that we can, things need to be done in order, right, for us to have a clean and better society. It's not just in Aba. Lagos is there. There are several other states that are dirty, but we need that, personal orientation. If there's a deterrent, right, in place, people will learn to do the right thing. So I appreciate everything everybody has said. In education sector, in terms of employment, there has to be this internship program, right? Because a lot of people get jobs today because they've done one or two internships, right? So there has to be that agreement between the companies and various companies to be able to get our graduates employed through internship programs and then be able to absorb them into the economies, into the workforce, so that they'll be productive. I see a new Nigeria, and I see a lot of things happening if we should get it right. But I think 2023 is definitely deciding for that. We make sure that we bring people that would have the interest of the people at heart and be able to put an institution that would be sustainable. Because somebody was saying after P2B or whoever,
All right,
what
so
next?
Gabriel, we're gonna round it up.
Yeah, I'm running out right now. So if the right institution is in place, I think it should be, it would be a continuum, right? So thank you guys, and thanks everyone, and thanks Carlo for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Hey, you're very welcome. Hey guys, believe it or not, we've come to we've come to the end more or less of the space. We've been here for a while, give or take. 3 hours and I would say about 26 minutes. So we're going to run it up about 3 hours and 30 minutes, right? Thank you all. I appreciate all the comments. Like I said, this is a series that we've done to highlight the economic plans of all three candidates, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and now, of course, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So we've just done the Peter Obi session. We've talked about the released action plan, or is it Pact, as they call it. The main point we've run around them, these are the broad outlines. Even if they do come out, they are still going to essentially repeat those same themes. We'll try to educate ourselves, right? Because we are the voters. It's our country too. And we're just simply doing this because we want a better thing for Nigeria. We don't want the past where we simply go vote because someone says, I'll make $1 $1. We want to understand what that statement means so that we understand that it is impossible to make $1 $1. Hence, we can make a vote based on knowledge, right? We want to make a knowledgeable vote. That's why we're doing all this. And you guys have shown that this is important to you. At the point we had nearly 700 here. I appreciate you all. We're going to wind it down about 10:30. Again, if you're an HR person who would like to come on a space with me to talk about hourly wage, non-political, we'll just talk in terms of what it means, how we do the envelope. I would love to host you possibly next week if that's going to be possible. Otherwise, we'll just shut this down. I just appreciate everyone that has spoken. Thank you all. We'll meet here again next week. My name is Kalu Aja. Do get my book, Let's Talk About Your Money. It's right on Amazon and also with Robin Hyde's book. And we talk about a lot in that book, right? Personal finance, the economy, how to save, budget, and invest. I hope you guys will get it. It will bless you. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you guys next week. You have a good